There we go.
Fuck yeah, look at this mug.
You're hot.
It's freaking
Wait,
huge.
well, we're not that live. We're sitting at our
This thing's
splash
huge.
screen,
I feel alive.
awaiting a raid.
Oh wait, if I get this positioned correctly, it'll look like my face. Deej, look at me right now. Do you see that?
Oh my god, I can't see this. It's not fair.
It's
We'll
my
have to-
face.
We'll have to watch the replay.
It's amazing. This mug is the best mug ever.
Okay.
Wiki, wiki, wiki! The DJ show. DJ show.
Alright.
Keep it on lock, motherfuckers. Wiki, wiki, wiki! You're hanging with the homeboy.
Thanks for the host, the Whittler.
I cannot believe this stuff.
Skibbity wibbity wop.
Thanks, Wid.
Thank you, man.
I don't think anybody can see the fact that I'm wearing this amazing mug right now.
They can, dude. They can.
I just
Oh, they
can't
can,
see
they
it.
can. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can.
All right, man, this mug.
Thank you for the raid, D-Quill. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's get this party started.
And what a party it will be.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Gear-Splaining, the DJ show. featuring-
DJ.
DJ Annias, djTacehT, djSweeby, and Coherence, and the Masterminds crew, the best in dubstep and douchebaggery.
Oh, he just went there.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow. Yep.
Sorry, I actually don't think that. I just think that. Anyway, I think that opening up sets with like an intro like that, like it's like you're listening to, like you're like I think that's the cheesiest shit. I
don't
can't
know.
stand
I
it.
get why people do it. It's got a practical reason for, like, literally just so people know what it is.
Yeah, it has a
Yeah.
historical context as a station ID. You're listening to WGBS,
Like, I
whatever.
feel in a situation that you're at a performance and you're right there, like, they know it's you.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
you're looking at the guy right in front of you. So
You're
anyway,
listening to djSweeby, the DJ show.
yeah. So
We're
we've
gonna
got an array of guests here for you today. We had a little vote the other day to whether we want to have the Great Sync debate, and we figured we'd go ahead and expand that into an entire show that was focused on one of the big vocal or musical segments here on Twitch, which is DJing. So joining us, we have Annias,
Hello?
djTacehT,
Hello.
and djSweeby.
What's up?
And as usual, Dan Kushner and myself. So welcome, everybody.
Great to see you.
As you guys can tell,
Dan.
I'm upping my ridiculous quotient quite a bit.
I love it.
Pimp.
So we're gonna cover DJing. So, and that's actually our kind of ancestral home, you could speak, as a DJing thing. We've done a lot on Gear-Splaining here about synthesizers and production in that world, but really our roots and I think most of our output is actually DJs spinning, DJs streaming, DJs playing. And the places that we've been before this, Chew and Mixify, we're DJ centric, and we still are DJ centric, and we try to keep a balance up. But we need to be talking about it because it's important, and because we're Gear-Splaining, there's some fantastic gear, and that gear brings up a lot of interesting points and a lot of different things to talk about. The first thing we really want to talk about for anybody who's watching, our first topic is DJing, how you got started. So we want to hear stories from everybody, from Annias to djTacehT to Deej, Co. And I'll tell my story, although I might just be lying about stuff because you can't trust me. And let's everyone talk about how you got your start, your roots. So let's start upper left hand corner. Annias, take us away.
Don't everybody go at once.
I tagged you. You go.
Oh, here.
You're it.
You.
I'll go ahead and talk about it. So I've always loved music since I was young, and I think at some point, I grew up listening to classic rock and all this type of contemporary hip hop and all the things that a kid in the 80s and 90s would listen to. I think when I got into the early to mid 90s, I met a fella at a CD club that cultivated a electronic music section. And while probably the most exposure I really had to electronic music, other than something I might have heard like the Prodigy and things like that, and all the early 90s house type pop vibes that were coming out, was all the stuff that this guy introduced me to. So I started becoming a customer of him, and then started going to raves with him and his friends. And at that point, I was exposed to the DJ culture, and trying to figure out what they were doing. And for a while, I was just partying. I love music, but I thought about production, but I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't even know that they were mixing two records and making all this stuff happen. I was just at a rave listening to amazing music. And then I, started to inquire as to what was happening and watching what was going on, seeing the turntablists come around. And yeah, that basically motivated me to proceed to purchase a Pioneer 300 mixer and use a fancy. I didn't have the money to get turntables and all this sort of thing back in the mid 90s, but I did have a Sound Blaster creative card that had multiple, front and rear outputs. So I was able to run that through a series of software with a Pioneer 300 mixer. And I think I was using PC DJ Red in like 1997, just kind of inching my way into the art, basically. That's how I started.
Oh yeah, PC DJ Red. I remember that.
I had. I used it.
Nice.
I did karaoke with this guy for a while, and that's how I had DJ Red.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a ghetto setup, running front and rear outputs to different parts of it. But I mean, it was. I thought it was pretty forward thinking for 1997 or whatever it was, right around.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody?
All right, let's keep it moving. Wiki catch it.
Oh, okay. So many years ago, my first rave actually was an ambient rave. It was at a house party. And to get me started, well, when I walked in, I'm not going to explain everything that happened there because you guys probably got an idea. But what got me started was when I was listening to the DJ mix. That was something that I just thought was amazing, really cool. And the fact that he was, I kind of understood what he was doing, but I just sat there and watched for hours and hours and hours. So since that party, I started going to a few other parties, and then I decided to ask a few friends of mine that started getting into DJing to teach me. And so that's really how I got started. It's really simple because I was completely vinyl. So I just borrowed everybody's music until I got my own. And that was probably earlier, 94. Oh, earlier than that. Way earlier. That's my story. It's not very long. So
No, that's cool.
94, huh?
around that, I think, if I can remember right, I'm pretty old.
That sounds about right. That was a good time.
Yep.
Wiki
Sweeby. Sweeb, what happened to you?
All right.
Young man over there in
How did
Australia.
it all start? It's kind of the same thing. It started with house parties. I met up with a guy. I didn't know him firsthand. I met him through a friend, and he had a lot of white label material. And at the
Okay.
time, I had no idea what that was. It was like, so he's like, come over. So we had some beers, and this guy had the Technics and everything else. And like I said, I was 16. And I remember the song that hooked me into DJ was ATB, 9 p.m. Till I Come. He had that white label. So he did that, and that was it. 2 years later, he actually started to go to clubs. So I would go, and believe it or not, I was actually a dancer on the stage. Like
Oh, okay.
on the clubs he
What?
would play in the
Is there
rave.
video? There's gotta be video.
Yeah, it's buried. It's gone, man. It's way gone. Way gone.
It's on VHS, man.
It's like Betamax. So anyway, that was that. Really, after that, by 2002, that's when I was really into it. But I didn't actually get into DJing for about another 15 years later. Just with life and everything. I loved the music, but I had a kid. So I've only been DJing for 3 years, 3.5 years now, like properly. So yeah, I'm kind of a late bloomer compared to most people that you speak to. I'm late, but better late than never, right?
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll go next. So I was born in 1979 in Park Ridge, Illinois, to Richard and Faye Kushner.
This is gonna be
There
the
was a
really
giant
long
snow.
version.
There we go.
Oh my god.
All right. I'll cut to. I'll move
No,
forward a little
please,
faster.
please continue.
Okay, so let's see. I went to my first rave and immediately decided I was going to become a DJ. Like immediately, it was like that. Disco D was the DJ that really did it for me. Actually, so there were two DJs that were really influential. There, DJ Funk was also there, and he passed out
DJ
drunk and
Funk.
fell through the turntables.
Did he have his cadre of dancers with him?
No, not for this one. This was like a 3-night rave in the middle of Iowa.
Right on.
And I guess he doesn't bring his cadre for that, but he did bring a bunch of booze, which I'm going to say is Malort, even though I have no proof. And he drank all of it and then passed out through the tables. And then Disco D came on, and he was awesome. He was just fantastic. And I was playing bass in bands, like jam bands at the time, and the first thing that went through my head was, wow, okay, what this guy is doing here is actually an art form. It can be done at the level of an art form. And so that's when I decided I was going to do it. It took a little bit longer to save up the money because I think I was like 19 or 20 and I needed to get turntables. At the time it was like $500 and then a mixer, and I was a totally broke college student, so it took probably another 2 years until I put all the pieces together. And actually I started doing live PA stuff with synthesizers first, but then everything got stolen, and I had a friend with turntables, and that was how I decided to do it. And then I ended up getting deeper involved, and that's another story. But that would be my origin story, so to speak.
Big
On to
Oof.
Co.
Yeah, so in about 99, I had a buddy who was living with me. I had just bought a house and I had an extra room, so I rented it out to him. And every weekend he would go out and he'd come back like Sunday morning, just, red-faced and like, oh my God, that was great. And I'm sitting there playing, what was it, Counter-Strike 1.0 or 1.1? Like, yep, that's cool, dude. And he kept asking me to go out with him. And finally, I just folded and said, sure, let's go out and see it. And we went out there, and I'm like, this is so not my scene. This is ridiculous. Wait a minute. So what's going on up there? He's like, oh, that's DJ Psycho Bitch. Oh my God. I was like, okay, I don't care. Oh, I know her. Let's go up in the booth. I'm like, all right. So we went up in the booth, and I saw what looked like a control station. Like this console of knobs and faders and buttons, and there were 4 turntables up in this booth, and all these things were spinning. I could see her just like piecing together little bits and pieces of different tracks, and the light went off in my head. I went, wait a minute, I've got Acid Pro at home from Sonic Foundry. I can do this. And so I was fascinated. Got back home, quickly hacked together a little mix, which in retrospect was awful. And as it turns out, I had a buddy of mine who I gave it to who still plays it to this day. It is a scourge on my history, but it continues. But I quickly realized that doing it all in post like that was horrible. And I needed something more immediate, and the turntables soon followed.
You know what I loved about it? I loved the immediately I had a love for the aesthetic of it. There was a record crate. It was like records. Oh my God. Everything was CDs by that point. And Napster was about to hit, and MP3s had just really started releasing, and they were playing records. They had these record sleeves, and there was art on them, and some of it was like really, really unique. Some of it was like big, crazy, like psychedelic stuff, but some of it was really soulful. And I thought it was fantastic that this was like the building blocks. It just like blew my mind. This was the building blocks for what was coming out of the speakers, and it was like the first hint that there was this other entire culture underneath all of that had many layers and many people. Because if you're putting out a record, you got to be able to do a lot of things, right? If you're doing an underground, you don't necessarily have access to those resources. And I was just like, how big could this be? But you got to be able to write a track, record it. You need to be able to, at the time, finance or have someone finance the actual pressing of the vinyl. You need to be able to create artwork for the label, artwork for the sleeve. That's a lot of different things, and it felt like before I showed up that it was a small thing, but it was like just enough people were doing it to create this level of quality, and that was I just absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was deep.
Yeah, real quick. So, DJ Explain, thank you for the follow. And to Slaughter's point, really quick, he said he had a topic idea: the difference between being limited by a vinyl collection versus an unlimited access to tracks in the digital sphere. And I believe that's something that we will touch on tonight. But Scott's also correct that that's like a philosophical question at some point. But we'll definitely touch on it. I can see us hitting in that point.
Yeah, that one's we're gonna have to cover that over multiple episodes.
So I think one of the fascinating things that happened for me after first getting into the kind of the DJ world was the trip to the record store. So finding music is kind of an integral part of any DJ's kind of mainstay work, the work that goes into the set before the set. Even today in the digital sphere, that is, at least as long as the set that you see on Twitch, but likely 2 or 3 times more per, if it's like an hour and a half on stream, there's at least 2-3 hours of looking for that music or assembling that music in the background. So, Annias, if you want to kick off, anything that you have to say about finding your music, the hunt.
I have probably some different. I don't know. I have some particular perspectives than a lot of maybe just DJs might have on it, which is that, like at this point in my DJing career, I've been DJing and producing for a little over 2 decades. I've developed a lot of interpersonal relationships with my peers that write music around the planet, and it's gotten to a point where in the two genres that I really try to express as a DJ, which is drum and bass and dubstep, I generally have access to more music than I can fucking have the time to listen to all the time. Just from, I mean, at this point, just from my friends. There's more music than I have amount of time to really process constantly. I have to put conscious effort into working that folder down into an organized setup so that I can use it. So that's a lot of music just coming from my peers in the production arena. Otherwise, I really just I think about DJing as kind of a combination of serendipity and synchronicity. You kind of reach your hand in, and when you reach it in, you find the thing and you do it, and that has to do with what you're exposed to. Generally, like your musical lexicon, what you know of, and most of the time, new artists that come into my sphere are just coming in through recommendations from friends, seeing track lists of other mixes, and then pursuing those particular individuals and those particular types of compilations and labels that have a sound that I'm looking for. I start to gravitate directly towards those. I look for that artist, and I try to find where they distribute their music through either individually or whatever kind of distribution or labels represent them, and I just attack straight at the source of what I'm looking for. Occasionally, I'll browse long ass playlists of just random stuff like friends playlists that they like on SoundCloud, or just friends SoundCloud likes and things like that. People who I know have a similar taste, so I can kind of get right at the heart of all the stuff I should be looking for. I don't ever look at Beatport Top 100. I don't look at any charts or anything like that. Mainly just kind of try to stay within my sphere, and a lot of people that get influenced.
Yeah, the Friends playlist is a really good one. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's pretty much it for me finding music these days. I don't have to. I don't go to record stores and still try to grind it out and find old classics and things like that. I mean, I pretty much have a gigantic archive already built over the years, and then, like I said, more music than I can really process on a daily basis coming in from just my peers. So it's transformed for me quite a bit since how it might have been done in the past.
Awesome. Tatchet, what's your hunt look like?
Oh, it depends. Well, depending on how long I'm going to do a set, it's going to depend how many tracks I might throw in. It can be up to 100 to 200, even that. But usually, kind of similar. I usually use Juno if I'm going to buy the tracks. Beatport's okay. I will support friends that are on Beatport, but Juno has a lot better variety of genres and a little bit more underground DJs that are on there. Um, I also the hunt will be through sometimes SoundCloud, check out new artists. I really do enjoy mixing things that haven't really become popular yet. Mainstream is okay, but I really do look for more underground, unknown people. to try to mix. Um, and then the rest is my collection has become so big throughout the years since I started digitally. That's really about it. I actually go through, I have a few labels that I actually will stick with and go through. They all have different artists, new artists, and I'll check that out. And I use YouTube a lot to listen to the full tracks because you're not going to really get a chance to really get to know the track. Yeah, it's
100%.
yeah, because if you get like a few seconds, I mean, yeah, you get an idea, but YouTube allows you to see what you want to use on the track. Because sometimes I will go into the middle of a track and use just a portion of it and then move on. So that can take me up to about 4 hours for a set
Yeah,
because I'm very picky. So,
YouTube is such a critical resource these days because on
mhm,
all of the sites, pretty much all the sites, you only get a small snippet, and usually with the consistency of a lot of electronic music songs, that snippet will cover most of the expression of the track, but not always. And it's those ones where maybe you didn't check the full track on YouTube and it has like some yodeling like mountain man for like the first minute of the track that you had no idea was there. It looked like normal waveform. It didn't look like there was a break, but then, oh dear. Yeah.
and it
All
could
right,
have been a
wait. So
panty dropper.
two pieces I got to unpack there. First off, is everyone in agreement that if you're a producer, if you own a record label, you need to make sure that the tracks you release are also up on YouTube? Is that a piece of advice that you don't want the world to know?
It's controversial. Some people, like, especially with streaming services starting to, like DJ streaming services being integrated in hardware and software platforms to platforms like Spotify and SoundCloud, a lot of producers are starting to think, yeah, and labels are starting to think, I don't really want even a low quality version of my fucking 5 minute song on there. I just want to put a minute and
Yeah.
30 seconds. So it gets controversial on the other side now because of all this weird shit that's happening in the industry.
Hmm. Second thing is coherence. Are you saying that a mountain man yodeling would not go over well?
A mountain man yodeling, if you know he's gonna yodel, can be a glorious thing. But a mountain man
Okay.
yodeling when you'd least expect it,
No
I
that's
feel like I need
one
to.
that's terrible.
appreciates the surprise yodel.
I feel
Got
No,
it.
the
like I need to
surprise
challenge
yodel.
myself to get one of those in my set now.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Tatcha. And Sweeby,
No
what
problem.
does your dive look like?
Okay, well, as most of you guys know, for most of my sets, it's an old school. Whether it's old school hardcore, whether it's old school breakbeats, it's kind of like the inverse. I don't look, there's not many websites you can really go to. What Annias said, friends playlist is a huge thing for me because there's a lot of older peers that I know that have got the music. And YouTube is another one. Again, that thing, like, believe it or not, out of probably everything, YouTube is one of the most valuable resources for, especially for older, obscure music, and stuff like that, especially the hardcore I play. So, like I said, I don't do beatport. I don't do any kind of thing with the most up current music because, I really don't play it that often. It's all through friends and just digging back through and just really trying to find, that obscure kind of music. It's not easy, but, friends and recommendations, I find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as my hunt, yeah, I have no shame about using Beatport when necessary. The thing about Beatport, whether you like it or not, it's the one spot where basically all the music ends up eventually. Now, of course, if you want to get a jump on other people as far as the absolute bleeding edge, something like Juno Download is a fantastic resource. Bandcamp is another fantastic resource for finding those elements that just haven't been published because the bar to
I do a lot
publish
of band
on
camping these days.
yeah the bar to publish on Beatport, it's not like insurmountably high, but it's higher than just the average amateur producer that might just make a blowout track. You might not be able to get it up there without knowing
Yeah.
people, networking, or getting involved with another group, which might screw them anyway. And then another big source for me, since I do a lot of kind of tech house, techno, that sort of thing, is Track Source for sure.
Now
But
that you mention it, I think I've bought the most music I've bought this year has come off of Bandcamp, 100%.
Yeah,
actually.
really great
Just so
releases on
happens
Bandcamp.
that like a lot of and then I wanted to say that there's a common thread that I noticed so far, even though we might have different methods and whatnot. There is a common thread, which is that we spend time looking. I just want to mention
Inordinate
that for the
amounts of
crowd,
time.
like there is this common thread, which doesn't matter which way you're doing it. If you're going to record stores or talking to your friends or going to SoundCloud or whatever, but I mean, there is this this thing that people out there think like a DJ just gets up and like, oh, when you go to work, you just work for an hour and you get paid. No, we spent like fucking thousands of
We
hours
do.
of our lives building this musical lexicon so that we can express this. So there is a common thread, which is no matter how you do it, you got to spend time doing it.
You hear that, everybody? It's work. We work.
It
So-
can be for sure.
Just wanted to
I
throw
got-
that in there, Kev.
Few pieces to add to this, although I'm not DJing right now, right? So I have my vinyl collection, and I do the crate digging thing. Scott and I are doing something, and Co's gonna jump in on that, but that's really a little bit different altogether. I used to love going to the record store, and if I was broke and if I had $5 in my pocket, I would go down there and I'd spend 3 hours, right? And I knew everyone who would come there and shop, and it became like a social activity for me. So that to me is something that I really liked. That kind of ended on that there was some erosion to that, right? Because pretty quickly there Planet X and Satellite became available, and there was a much wider berth of things that you could buy, and you suddenly weren't able to get access to things like white labels or unique things. Everybody started kind of buying the same things, and it became a little bit more homogenous as far as the sets people played because so many people had access to the same record store online.
Sure.
But that's how I built up my collection. And that's how I grew. Now I have a record label. It makes like no money, but I do own a record label, and I can tell you guys one thing, and that is Bandcamp is the only really truly unique service out there. When I put together a release, I have the ability to release it to literally, it's a click, one button, and I can put it out on every single store that everyone's mentioned here, except Bandcamp. Bandcamp is managed directly by the artist, and that's the only one. So in other words, when I can tell somebody if I want an exclusive, so if I want it to be on Beatport for 2 weeks or Juno for 2 weeks before anybody else, but for the most part, I think that maybe different labels may employ partnership strategy, or they may want to be in one area or another. But as far as being able to get to a specific store, all you really have to do is click a button with your distributor inside of your portal, and they will put it on in every single store. It's even in like stores that like no one in the United States uses. There's like Russian
Sure.
stores, and it goes out there, it gets wide, and it gets distributed pretty heavily. And if you don't put it on certain stores, there's pretty easy argument to be made that you're leaving money behind because someone who only goes to Juno, if you're not on Juno, isn't going to discover your song, buy it, and same thing for Beatport. Bandcamp is different. You Bandcamp, the people put up things, they directly manage their relationship with Bandcamp. It's their own store. It's much more like Etsy, but for music. And I personally think that Bandcamp is a fantastic thing. And if I were DJing right now, I'd be spending a lot of time on there because I think there's a much better chance that you're going to find a gem that other people haven't found.
You would
There,
be
'cause
spending a lot of time there because their discoverability is shite.
Yeah,
it is
it's
it
not
is
an
the
easy
worst
place to navigate.
interface. Yeah.
I don't find stuff randomly on Bandcamp. Like somebody shows me that their thing is there.
Yeah,
You
or
know,
I'll go to a
Oh.
label, a specific label that maybe I know and I've purchased from before, and then kind of branch out from there and hopefully find some connections that with some musical
Now,
styles.
that withstanding, as I said, Dan, I spend all my. That's where I buy most of it. Like when I do buy tracks that aren't coming from friends, it's usually there.
Gotcha. You know what? You guys are right. Every time I've gone there, I think I've gone there from a direct link. I don't think I've gone there and like surfed.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because the quality is really good in some of the releases there.
Hey,
What's
you popped
going on,
up our
Tadget?
screen.
I
You popped
see
up on our
Tadget.
screen now.
I see
You-
Dan now. You look
You
so
gotta.
ridiculous.
You
It's
just
awesome.
next time you're gonna outplay me like this, man. I feel so.
Oh my gosh.
And Tatchet's internet has just caught up with the rest of us, everybody, and she has been blessed with the visage of our good buddy Dan Kushner.
Ladies and
beautiful.
gentlemen, Spectrum Internet.
You're a
Nope.
beautiful.
Actually, this is AT&T internet.
Oh, Atata.
I know.
Got it.
Oh, that's so cute. I need that.
This is
Nice.
the mug.
Hey,
Nice.
Chris DeMello, Eli Pert, glad you could join us. D-Quill, what's up, man? And Kinetic. All right,
Sorry
so I
for
guess
that.
we can jump over the conversation about getting music. Hardware and software, just a quick little round table. We'll start with Annias and go around. Just what are you using? What do you prefer?
What I personally use now is a Tractor Control S2 MK1 with custom map to Virtual DJ because it supports VSTs. Oddly enough, I don't find many. I don't find many DJ software programs right now that are currently supporting external effects. They only have whatever they come with, and I have some weird VSTs going all the way back to old 32-bit VSTs from the 90s that I've tried a bunch of different stuff to load it in, and yeah, I can use third-party VSTs. I've got I didn't actually make the map because I'm lazy. I think when I bought this in 2009, I paid a guy. I found somebody who did a custom map for the Control S2 right to Virtual DJ for like $10, and it was fucking beautiful. I mean, he programmed all the lights and made it all just snazzy. And then I've kind of manipulated it over the last decade to my liking. But that's what I prefer to play on. I
So
also
wait,
occasionally go ahead.
Virtual DJ can run VSTs now in its effects stack.
Yeah, it can, and it is not a great host. It's not like some super solid host. Like most of if I tried to run like Looperator or something fucking crazy, it would probably crash the shit out of it. But a lot of like really cool old 32-bit dub delays and different stuff. There's a lot of neat stuff I can do with it,
Yeah,
for sure.
I can tell
I
you
mean,
that
it has some nice stuff built in, but yeah, you can use VSTs in there. You can try them out at least.
Yeah, I was talking to Favorite Darkness and a few other people the other day about DJ software, and I stated unironically that Virtual DJ is really really good, and the only part of it that just kind of drags for me is their effects. Like even the third party effects that are in the user library are hot garbage. They're really really bad. Like all it needs is a good delay.
It's not that. They're not that. It's not that great. And that's what I do is I use some weird old analogic
That's
dub delay
awesome.
type shit. I'll give you some of the DLLs that I use that I found that do work in there. It's a little, like I said, it's not perfect and it's a little glitchy, but I mean you can map stuff and make it work. But yeah, that's my current setup. I've also done stuff over the years where I played on 1200s and then 1200s with Serato and Rain equipment. I don't mind using turntables and like a control platform at this point. What I don't use though, because I don't use CDJs. I don't know. I kind of missed that boat, right? Like I used to play with 1200s, and then I went to controllerism and CDJs. While I don't think they're a bad thing, I think they had a reason to exist. Like at some point in the past, it kind of confuses me now because I'm like, they just seem like at this point they all seem like they're fancy controllers anyway. So, but yeah, just that's where I'm at now. Controllerism.
Nice. Attach it.
Mine's really simple actually. I use NS3. I like the screen, so I don't have to look at my monitors. And I use Serato. So that's pretty much all
Nice.
I'm using right now. Yeah, it's
Short and
very
sweet.
simple setup.
Sweepy.
Originally I started with an SE2, which was Serato only, and I kind of went ass backwards. I started with the SE2, which was one of the flagship controllers, 2 years ago. Then I got my Technics, and then I went back the way. I got a DJM 750 MK2, which uses record box, and that's where I am today, even with my DDJ 1000. And I've got to admit, like compared to, I've only used Serato and record box to DJ, but I prefer record box. The flexibility, the different fields they have. We spoke about this last week. The counts played and everything else is much more accurate. I did try to track the pro, like I told you. I'm hoping I could get onto that, but unfortunately, my heart, even with the mapping, it does not. It can't support. And the major thing I got away from the tractor for the hour that I played with it was the effects. Those effects on the tractor 3, unbelievable. Like it blows the water out of both Serato and record box for me.
Yeah, go figure. A music production company that creates some of the best VSTs in the world has great effects.
and to be
Yeah.
honest with you, Sweeb, they run great on that new S4 MK3. They've got it kind of like integrated real tightly into additional areas of the controller. It's a powerful platform.
I know, like I said, I tried one of. I think my favorite effect that I tried was the gate, and it just sounded unbelievable. But fortunately, with the DDJ 1000, the platters don't light up. There's no LCD working. So fortunately, I'm stuck with Record Box, but I would definitely pick that over Serato if I had to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm the minority, but I do
No.
prefer.
No,
I do
not at
prefer.
all. So the way that I look at it with with the pantheon of kind of the big four, you've got Tractor Pro, you've got Serato, you've got Record Box, and you've got Virtual DJ as kind of the big players in that particular industry. And I kind of rate them, and this is personal preference, but it's kind of Tractor, Record Box, Serato, VDJ, and it was only because of the effects thing. And so knowing that it runs VSTs, I think it just leapfrogs Serato without any issue. So me personally, I'm right now using Roland DJ 808, and then I've also got it paired with some Denon SC 2900 CDJs. Really, those are just there to keep sharp. So in case I do have a gig and it's like, oh, you're going to be playing on CDJs, it's like, great, well, I'll just spin on those and that'll get me back to used to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and as a technology, the CDJs, I just skipped over them because they did seem unnecessary. It was like you had turntables, which were absolutely great, and then you had controllers.
It made sense for like a little while.
It did. Yeah, well, especially for consolidation of music. That was a big one. Being able to show up to a show with a little CD sleeve instead of bringing, your crate or your classic Shure bag. I don't know how many of you had the Shure bag, but man, that thing was awesome.
I still got it. I got my name
Yep.
emblazoned on it.
Yeah, that's a great bag. So yeah, and then I'm using that with Serato today. Still on the older version of Serato, just because it's stable and it works, and I don't really plan on sticking with Serato. I think next step for me will be either a Zone 96 with Tractor or a what's it called, an S4 Mark III with Tractor.
They're wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, I know that you weren't kidding.
With Abstract here soon again on them, and I'll try to key you into it. They're wonderful machines.
Yeah. Well, especially the new assignable effects, using that almost like as a filter control.
Yeah, there's like it's real strange. Right there in the middle, they got 4. Yeah.
I used Technics 1200s MK3 with some Shure Blue.
Really? All right.
Well, since we covered all that, and it's interesting, so everybody's got a little bit of an attachment to, or at least they've got access to some of these affectations of the past. So, Annias, I know that you are kind of championing controllerism, and I'm kind of right there with you. So what do you think about the fact that you have a controller that still has these legacy platters? Are the legacy platters and say like pitch control and things like that, are those things that you use while you're DJing today? And if so, how?
It doesn't bother me. I love that they're carrying it through. I mean, because right now with that controller that you just mentioned, the Mark III, the S4 Mark III, we've come full circle. No pun intended. They've got direct drive little platters on them that are fucking rocking. You feel them just like they're like 1200s. They're really tight with the torque, and they're just great to use. They're on like really well machined platters that just feel great. Not only that, like when you put cues on, it has this technology. I don't know if you tried it, but if you hit a cue on the track, it literally bumps the fucking platter like you were hitting the groove of a kick in a vinyl record. Like, so you can feel the kick, you can feel the cue on your hand. You don't even have to. So I don't mind the affections, and yeah, I do use them. I was gonna say, like, if I had to look at an older piece of tech that I liked that had some kind of affection, the legacy type stuff that I thought was cool, that now doesn't really matter to me on hardware because it's all reflected on the software anyway, would be like I loved playing on 1200s, but I also really liked, because I played drum and bass, playing on Vestax PDX 2000s back in the day.
Oh yeah,
because they had ultra pitch. What the fuck? I'm sorry. They had ultra pitch on them, which instead of giving you had a lot wider pitch range. I'm trying to hold it together.
This one's signed.
That's nice, man.
Can you get your digital file signed?
Very cool.
Probably you can.
Yeah, you can cryptographically, and yeah.
But anyway, the PDX 2000s had ultra pitch, and they had really good torque, but that ultra pitch gave me a lot more dynamics with the amount of tracks that I could play on vinyl and still keep in the range that I needed to do what I wanted to do. And then also like instant reversing on the table where I could push the button, and so now all that stuff is reflected both with buttons that I have on the controller, as well as I can just go to the menu and select the pitch range that I want. I could do plus 50 and minus 50% pitch range if I really wanted, or 100% or whatever. So some of those things, yeah, I like that they're there. Even when I don't play on the MK3, when I don't have a direct drive platter, I love on my MK1, I can still, on Tractor, I could use it to scratch if I wanted to. On VDJ, the control doesn't seem to go in that well, but I can still use it to just drop tracks. And I love it. It's definitely nice to have the tactile.
This one is signed, and it was given to me by DJ Icy.
Nice. Baby Ann. I remember that.
Nice. So Tatchy, you've got the NS7 III, which has rotating platters on a controller. So how important is that to you, and is that something you want to see continue?
Actually, I do. I think it's. I'm not as technical as you guys are, but for using vinyl, being on vinyl for so many years, and being able to have control of beat matching and being able to use your pitch, to me, I find that extremely important. So when I went to digital, um, and I tried out several different types of controllers, I found that the NS7 allowed me to still have that control, not only for decks that work the same, but actually being able to control how I'm going to beat match, how I'm going to actually use any form of pitch control, and you get a wide. It's not like a small little tiny on CDJs where you can only go so long. It actually has long enough to where you can go as far as you want. So I found that to be better when I'm mixing. I know this is for the next subject for syncing, but I found that I think it's going to be important for people if they really do want to learn how to beat match. Having that option is going to be great to allow them to be able to learn.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Can I
Sorry, I have a
interject?
cat attacking me.
Can I interject quickly? Jungle Groove was asking about the new Technics that are coming out. Compared to the old ones, the from what I hear, I haven't played with them yet. I do hear the torque power is kind of on par with the PLX 1000s. Plus, they now have a digital pitch fader, so it's kind of going to be like if you've ever used your controller, it's going to be a lot more responsive compared to the old analog style pitch fader that you are with the 1200s, 1210s, and so forth. But do you want to pay the extra premium for the Technics over, the Pioneer PLXs? It's no preference, but I know Scott Danzy, he loves the PLX. He swears by them. He loves the torque. Yep. He says he loves the torque, the speed it goes off is next to nothing. So it's personal preference, but yeah, they are bringing them out. They're now going digital, which to me is kind of seems to be a bit ass backwards being a turntable with digital pitch control. But again, just personal opinion. That's all.
This right here is an original copy of Hybrid's Finished Symphony. It's a
that's
classic.
a good one. It is.
Got some
You're
more.
a classic too.
I collect this stuff. I love the originals. This is Carl Cox Future 2000.
Hey, I've got that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows this one.
Oh yeah.
This one's for you, Deej. Here's an original DJ Icy City of Groove.
Oh man, my heart. Oh
yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, man.
So Sweeby, with you, you're running DVS. You're still running DVS occasionally, and you got the DDJ 1000. So I assume that those affectations are important to you. Things like platters and pitch faders, etc.
The main reason I got the 1000 was because I was like, okay, I did, like I said, I had the SC2 that obviously was no longer compatible with Recordbox, and I wanted something that if I had to go to a house party or if I ever went somewhere, I really did not want to have to lug, a 1200 or 1210, my mixer, and everything else. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get the lightweight thing. and it has grown on me. Like I say, you know, I do. At the end of the day, I prefer my turntables. It just requires that little bit extra work, even with time code. You know, it's still not as easy as pushing a button. You know, it's with the torque and everything. But you know, like I said, I got it, and I do like it. Don't get me wrong. As you see, I use it more now than I do actually with my turntables. But it's always there. I like to use turntables, you know, kind of give myself a reality check from time to time. Like, you know, don't get too comfortable with things, and kind of, you know, use them. So we're good again.
Yeah,
All
that's
right, real quick.
Go ahead.
So, quick station break for identification. Actually, so I did want to just take a moment. We can come right back to this, but it is 10:30 Central Standard Time, and I want to make sure that we get this in there. So this is a little bit unrelated to DJing, but one of the members of our Discord, a regular Slaughterhouse, who was on the show last week, he's been getting into deep dreaming, and he's about to drop a ton of links into the Gear-Splaining room on our Discord. And to get to another level of deep dreaming where he can do a higher resolution, he needs a certain number of likes. So everyone, either during the show or after the show, head in there, find the links that he'll drop, and then please click on them, go create an account, click like, help him get to the next level in the Google Deep Dreaming.
Sure.
One of the things we do in Shrimp Cruise, we support each other's efforts, and that's one thing that we want to make sure that we're all focused in on. So he'll get those posted, and when you see them, please everyone click, go start your account, go click like, and just help him boost his score in there so he can get to a deep level. Oh, okay, so he just posted it into the chat here. So everyone clicking there, and then Slaughter, also make sure you post it into the Gear-Splaining room. Let's just keep on banging that drum until you get to the top level there. That way you can do the highest level resolution as well as the deepest stream.
Absolutely. And if
Okay.
anybody's not already following Slaughterhouse, make sure you do so.
Definitely do. Mm-hmm.
So on
Thanks
that,
for the heads up.
to wrap up the topic about the affectations, yes. So platters, so when I got my S4, I was pretty convinced that platters would be on their way out. Those things were so tiny and anemic, and coming from 1200s or 1210s to that was shocking. They're still useful, like they're great little encoders. Just is nothing else. You can use them for nudging and for quick scrubbing through tracks. It's just the size of it. I figured that they were going away. The S8 then kind of made me go, yeah, they're probably going away, but man, that really sucks. And then there was a push to make the platters on controllers tighter and faster and more accurate and better. And I have kind of one of the results of that, which is the DJ808. I know you've got another one, Sweeby, with the DDJ1000, and pretty much any of the Pioneer full-size controllers. Like, those platters are incredible, and all they did was solidify the fact that circular, rotary encoders of that style, meaning a platter, are kind of one of the perfect mechanisms for manipulating music in a linear fashion. And I don't ever want to see it go away.
I don't, and I'll quickly interject before we go to the next. The only thing that it took a while to get used to with the 1000 is that the platters are not haptic feedback. If you put your hand on it, it's mechanical. Like if you apply a light pressure to it, it'll actually slow it down like a record.
Yeah.
Or if you push it down, it stops. Yeah, but a lot of people jump to them thinking like with the SE2 and stuff, you can just put your fingers on it and it will stop. No, it's kind of like in between the old school and new school style, which is good.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the platter behaviors are always a little bit different from controller to controller, and some of them are configurable, but I just think that it's gotten to the point. I mean, you look at the new Native Instruments S4 Mark III, that thing does have haptic feedback. It does have both the side ring and the top capacitive plate. It has, pressure sensitivity and then that force feedback in the actual platter. Like, they're not going away, and that's a beautiful thing.
It feels like 1200s.
Yeah.
It does.
Controller.
Yeah.
Even this one I have from 10 years ago has the top pressure control. So if I put my hand on it, it stops the track.
Yep.
Right.
So I think it just varies from controller to controller.
And really, I think this, for me, the worry that they were going to go away and maybe that they weren't needed started with CDJs. And maybe that's why I didn't really get into them at all, because it felt like such a disconnect coming from a piece of vinyl to this plastic wheel that just acted in such a digital fashion. But we've come a long way.
You know what's interesting? that haptic feedback that we're talking about here, if you think about other art forms, that's a thing, right? So a lot of folks who do art, they have tablets that they draw on, they don't have feedback that they can see when they're going into the computer. And it's like they just kind of get used to doing it a different way.
You do, yeah. But
The only
it's
thing I could never imagine doing was those ribbons. You know, you were talking about the
Yeah.
circles, Co. And like, as opposed to what? And like, the only thing that even comes to mind that they tried was the ribbons. And I never even put my hands on one of those things. And frankly, I'm disgusted by the thought of it.
Well, it's ribbons and knob encoders. So the ribbons, you could see
Okay.
successful uses of those both on the S8 and on like the CDJ-2000 Nexus Mark I, where it was used as a needle drop. So essentially, you're using your finger to scan through a track really quick, maybe just drop it inside the break. You would drop your finger so that it would put you, roundabout where you wanted to be in the track, and then you'd grab the platter and go ahead and finish up your cue. And that little step, once you got used to that muscle memory, that action, saved you a lot of time. You could quickly drop to different locations and then just, nail it in.
I saw a controller where they moved the. I was thinking in terms of I had seen one where they took the platters away and it was just a ribbon controller.
Yes.
Which didn't make much sense to me.
No,
Yep.
in the case of the S8, I think you use Shift and the encoder knob, the one that kind of shows a rotary flash when it's playing a track. I think you hold Shift in that to do fine tuning of BPM, and it's not great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
I
could see
can
using
do
like
it.
I could see using like infinite knobs to do stuff like that, but their resolution's real low.
The resolution's real low. Yeah. And it was just, you got to spin that thing like crazy if you're trying to do like a really big sweep. But then again, a controller like the S8 was never designed for beat matching. Like it was designed for, basically Ableton Live, the DJ version. Cool. All right, so that I guess leads us right into. I mean, we've been dancing around the topic forever now. I think it's about time that we just jump into this thing.
Oh,
Let's
God.
just jump into it. All right, we'll start with our controller pusher here, Annias. Let's do this. Sync.
Oh well, I mean, again, I play on controllers now, but I mean, I love turntables and playing on vinyl as well as control vinyl and playing in that way. But I told you, like, this was actually the topic that came up during the last show, which made me step up and get a hold of you guys and say, hey, I'd really like to participate in this conversation because, again, as I explained to you in our private conversation when we discussed this, I think that there's a lot of superficiality and ass kissing inside of the DJ area of life, and so you don't often get people's most honest answers, or you get a lot of stuff like mixed mag articles or tastemakers saying something, and a lot of people kind of follow that perspective. So, yeah, I don't know. I have some unconventional thoughts on sync and how important it is or isn't or whatnot. So these days, like I do use sync, but it's not really even necessary because 95% of the time I'm mixing dubstep now, and 95% of my tracks are 140 BPM. So, and if it's something like footwork or, anything that's not really breaks where like you get a little bit wider, I mean, most genres have kind of coalesced around a particular BPM and maybe a small range thereof. So it doesn't become a huge issue, but I'll just state this about it. Beat matching is the least creative aspect of mixing whatsoever. There's nothing creative about trying to get two things to perform at the same speed to mix. I mean, choosing what BPM you play a track out, I guess, could be considered a form of creativity with BPM. But generally speaking, it's going to be the track's original BPM or something. Like a lot of us aren't taking really down tempo music and fucking running it at 50% to make it 170 BPM or something, So you're not getting a lot of creativity. You know what I mean? Like we're not using BPM in that way.
Yeah. So you guys won't. I'm gonna interrupt just for a second. I will let you finish. There's a quick little video clip that I wanted to play. You guys won't be able to hear the audio, but I think some of you may be familiar with this one already. It'll only take a second. We'll be right back.
I'm gonna pull it up.
I just you. They don't know what you're viewing.
Yeah, sorry, that didn't work out.
Yeah, I'm sitting here going, huh?
No. I did preface to you guys that there would be no sound because
Oh,
I don't
thanks.
have that ninja of a setup. That I
Right.
can somehow have a sixth box here that will force feed my desktop audio back to you as a Discord
That's-
channel.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah, basically it's DJ Jazzy Jeff saying, somebody in the audience at this event asked them, it was the Red Bull scratch thing, and he, somebody asked, what do you feel about sync, or like, is sync ruining the industry? And he's like, I don't understand why we always get this question about if some technology is going to ruin some creative art. He's like, you don't like the sync button? Don't fucking use it.
Right.
That's
Pretty
it.
much.
Like,
Right.
that's
much.
it. And then he goes on to say, like, if there's, do you think that anybody in the crowd that's watching you play and listening to your music and watching your art gives a shit how you're pulling it off? Like, if it's blowing their mind, is it less mind-blowing if you used one specific technology over another? Are they going to be upset because you used a DDJ 1000 instead of a DJ 808? Or, and take that into any art, it's just, it gets kind of crazy. And I'd have to agree with him a little bit, but I'm not going to throw my opinion out there just yet. So,
Well,
continue.
To finish up, or to continue on that topic. So I do use sync. I can also DJ without sync and have on just actual hardware for decades. But I don't consider it something to be to put myself over DJs that can't. As I talked to you privately, Co and I had a few conversations leading up to this podcast, and I let him know. I said there are some advantages, I think, to knowing how to beat match, and they're not so obvious. It's not about the beat matching itself. I think the main thing that beat matching will teach a DJ is what you learn ancillary to it, which is that when you get two tracks that are, let's say you do get them close enough and they are pitched together, it doesn't matter that they're pitched together. There's still maybe a 5 to 20 millisecond swing that you kind of need to find the groove of a particular track to fit it with another one. And when you sync and use a beat grid like you had brought up, it may or may not deliver you with the way that tracks should lay together. I mean, definitely not automatically. And so even if you go to a sync setup with a really nice beat grading algorithm and everything works great, you still need to know that, like, use your ears and fucking realize that, like, hey, my grooves aren't perfect. I need to actually dial this in, and so on and so forth. So it definitely helps. Or in the context of, hey, my controller's fucking broken, but you guys have CDJs. Oh, I can continue to play on that. So if that's something you want to do. Now, my thoughts is, when you see, like, a couple years ago, an article comes out on Mixmag and a big conversation about clubs saying that they won't allow controllers to come in and play, and you have to play on their setup, and so on and so forth. To me, I thought as an artist that's a little bit of a disrespectful position for the industry to take. Who the fuck is going to tell you, like, what instrument you should perform with to do what your art is?
Nice.
That's kind of my basic position on it.
Nice. We're glad that you're here to play guitar tonight at this venue, but we do not.
Ukulele or whatever.
Yeah, we don't allow Telecasters, Stratocasters, really anything by Fender unless it's made in Japan. None of the Mexican
Right.
models are allowed. We do allow Gibsons,
Mexican
but it's going to have to be a Les Paul, and only an American Les Paul, or specifically the Ibanez Flying V. That's our list, so I hope you have one of those.
Those Mexican Fenders are actually pretty baller. But
They are.
I just really want to quickly do a shout out to Nicholas Gurr, who subscribed to us. Thank you, Nicholas
Big up.
Gurr.
Thank you.
Nicholas or
I don't know.
Nick? Is it
I
Nick?
don't know. I don't know
What's
how.
up?
I only say proper names, and I'm assuming his whole name is Nicholas.
What up, Nick Gurr?
Big up, Nick.
Oh,
But Co, I don't want to go on too far about this because we did say that there was a few topics that we would probably discuss a little more than others. But hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of nuances that go way deeper in layers to what I'm saying here. But generally speaking, I wanted to get what I've said out to the younger folks out here who might be thinking about DJing, or folks that don't know a lot, or people who are currently DJing that are just trying to figure out what's going on and why are people so vitriol about this topic. And all I'm saying is, use what you want. Don't fear the sync button. If you want to be able to be more flexible, then learn how to DJ without it. But I'm personally happy that a 5-year-old can fucking DJ now. Now, syncing and beat matching is really not having a sync button does not a DJ make. And so there's a lot of other parts of yourself that you need to develop in order to excel and do what you want to do. But I'm glad that the barrier has been lowered by a pretty uncreative, insignificant technical spot. The only place that this doesn't apply is if you're a fucking DMC turntablist. Like if you're literally trying to be a turntablist and if that's your thing, then do it. But I'm personally a deep mixer. I don't wiki. I'm not into being all flashy with it.
Funny
I
you
just wanna
mention
learn.
that.
So,
Funny you mention that. One of the most prolific sync users today is also somebody with a very storied history in the DMC world, and that'd be DJ Craze.
Oh yeah, I love Craze.
Yeah, and Craze is a sync user, 100%, because it takes away one of those housekeeping steps that he has to do in order to
spend all
perform.
that creative. He can now spend all that physical and mental energy on shit that's actually creative, and not I need to make sure that these two are doing. Like I get it. Like everybody's happy that you can make two wheels spin, but it's just not. It's not a creative enough aspect of it for me.
The wheels of steel.
I'm kind of waiting for the day when somebody creates a new, like maybe the MIDI consortium or something, creates a new standard for gear architecture, which requires no cables. You just simply point devices at each other, and then and then there's a button on there that you can press which says auto detect, and it auto detects your entire setup and tries to map it correctly to the mixer channels and everything.
Sure.
I'm waiting for that day because I'm hoping that there will be a contingent of Luddites that goes, oh, you used auto configuration and auto detect. You're not a real fill in the blank.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So hopefully, to cut off my part, pass this on over to djTacehT and Sweeb. I just hope that we can be a little bit more agnostic about the way that people want to, handle their medium and get to the process of mixing. And I don't think that it's right or appropriate. I think it's downright shitty when somebody says that somebody's like a less of a DJ because they use sync. Now, everybody's free to have whatever opinion they want. I get honoring the tradition, and I am from the tradition. I get it, but I don't think that it's a reason to consider somebody like not an artist per se. So I pass it on to you.
To who? Me?
djTacehT.
You.
Sure.
Yep.
Me.
Yeah, you're right. You're right there for me.
Me.
Oh,
Right
no.
down here. I'm right here.
Yeah.
No.
Here we go.
The way I feel about sync, I really don't care. I don't. If I don't want to use it, I don't use it. I know a lot of people. I've seen other discussions. People getting upset, saying the same thing. You're not a real DJ if you use sync. You're not a real DJ if you can't beat match or pitch control. But the thing is, I think it's more habit. For me, it's definitely a habit. I didn't have sync when I first started, so I just go by what I have learned. I don't really need it. If somebody's learning how to beat match and they're trying to learn to mix and they're trying to, you know, figure out how it all works, then I don't see what the problem is. You have a lot of, like everybody else, you guys mentioned, a lot of the bigger guys are using sync for allowing allowing them to free up time so they can work on work with the other instruments they may be using. But it's a tool, and if you need to use it, use it. If you don't need to use it, don't use it. But for people who feel strongly that is saying you're not a real DJ, well, why are you limiting yourself to? That's just kind of a closed-minded, because you can do other things while you sync. But again, like I said, I don't use it only because of and it's just going to be how people are learning in habit.
You bring up a good point there at the end. I didn't even think about.
Yeah, it's
it
habit.
enables a lot more effect. Well, like you were saying, people are using it to enable, beat gridding and different types of timing of their effects and things like that, which I'm okay with as a producer. I love that. I love being able to have a specific kind of delay or to beat grid a beat into the future. You know what I mean? I can take my next bar and I can fucking remix it live while I'm playing, which I find personally fun, not only for the crowd, but when I fucking heard my selections like 100 times, I kind of like remixing my shit live just so I don't get bored when I'm up there.
Exactly.
And that's also afforded by this process,
Also, plus a lot of people are starting to integrate live actual instruments For me, I play cello. Some people play guitar. In that sense, if you're going to actually do something like that, I would see how syncing would be profitable during that mix, because you don't have time to sit there and try to beat match and pitch control that and try to, play your cello. There's not going to be any way.
Right. You just want to keep
So
out a consistent
so
music.
I see it as a tool, and I don't have a problem with it either way. So that's my 2 cents.
Sweeby.
Yeah, like I said, the guys have basically said the same thing. Have I ever used it? No. I can swear I've never used it. But for me, it's a personal preference. I want to better myself. Yes, beat matching is the lowest form of a DJ art, to be honest with you. Like, beat matching doesn't make you a DJ whatsoever. If you manually do it or somebody syncs, nobody gives, like Annias said, they
I
don't
didn't
give a
think that
shit.
as far as high or low. I just thought it was the least creative aspect.
No, but it's not. You're not a DJ just because you use a sync or you don't use it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
When you have 2 people or 1,000 people in front of you, like you said, nobody cares if you do it. I do it as a personal kind of challenge, just because I like to use my turntables, and there is no sync when it comes to a turntable.
Keeps you on your toes.
Right, and at the end of the day, nobody, everyone puffs their chest. DJs always puff their chests out. They're like, "Oh, I'm better than you because I grew up on turntables. You're using sync. You don't do this. You don't do that." The only ones that I would think even have half a right to be able to say anything is somebody that can mix and scratch on turntables. A scratcher, like somebody who has real skill. Maybe they can be like, "Well, here, I can give you some pointers," but it's fruitless. It's fruitless. Nobody's going to think of you less. The only ones that are going to think of you less are the older people, the old school guys, and they're going to be gone soon anyway. This whole technology is taken over for a reason. It's taken over to help you get better, and if you sync, and if it can help you do one more thing better that you don't have to worry about, then do it. Like I said, I do not use it, but hey, knock yourself out if you want to use them, man. I don't.
love your British morbidness about it. Don't worry about those old guys; they'll be gone soon.
Well, they
Oh
will.
yeah, that's what he says. There, I just want to interject with Jungle Groove asked if is mixing in key more important.
Yes.
Personally, I find yes, it's very,
100%.
because if you got it, yeah, you have a key of G and then you get a key of A, that's gonna.
We're getting there. I think that's like one of the top.
So-
It is, and
Yeah.
before we finish this, my last thing is, for me, a beat sync will be pointless. For anybody that's ever listened to me DJ, 85%, 90% of the time, I do not keep one genre. I will jump from, it could be house to old school to drum and bass, whatever it is. I go to the most obscure, craziest. So trying to use the beat sync with beat grids, it would sound worse than me trying to actually mix it in.
Yep.
So it's just useless. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
So, like I said, I think I started myself out on the harder path, just for my own personal gain, just so I can keep me on my toes, keep me going, so I'm not getting bored, But yeah, use it if you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, you know what? Have fun.
A quick
Have
check.
beer, whatever.
Quick check starting with Sweeby. How important do you think it is for a new DJ, not as a requirement, but as a, something that might improve their overall skill palette or their ear or whatever it is? How important do you think it is that they do learn how to beat match by ear? We'll start with you, Sweeby.
Okay, well, I'm not going to name names, but I have a good friend who's actually learning to DJ now. He's on an SB2, very basic. And I forced him to use Beatmatch. And people would be like, why? Why are you doing that? The thing is that, there's a much more important thing than beat matching. You've got to learn how to phrase. You've got to learn the phrases. You've got to learn the drops. You've got to learn that. Do not worry about, trying to mix it in on 4 bars, 8 bars, whatever. I would much prefer somebody to use beat match and be able to phrase correctly, because that is what really makes a track mix well. You can have a beat going great, but if you got 2 vocals going at the same time or something like completely whack off key, then it's like, no, So I would use it. Just use it. If you feel comfortable enough where you can focus on getting the phrasing right and the ins and the outs, the drops, do it by all means. Because you can drop that later. You know, you don't want to learn a nasty habit of not being able to phrase right or be able to count in right because you're worrying too much about what your beats sound together, kind of thing.
Ion, who's I just seen in chat, he was talking about succeeded once beat matching Ableton
Mhm.
to YouTube. Yeah, that's great, and there's nothing wrong. I don't even think, like, if you want to go a step further, some guys aren't even like this fucking conversation about sync isn't even an issue. You've got guys who are national and international tours who are DJing out of Ableton. Their shit's already gridded up 100%,
Mhm.
and they're pushing a button and literally just launching shit on a bar. Like, but like some of those sets have been some of the most incredible ones I've ever heard, though, because
Mhm.
they're using VSTs and twisting their shit out.
Right.
So, like, for me, like I said, if you want to go and see somebody who either in sweep style, who's just wanting to kind of keep the tradition and keep himself on his toes, that's cool. All the way to like Qbert or a turntablism kind of exposition, that's great. Or a guy who's doing an Ableton set, who this isn't even a a reality he has to face. All those people can make amazing stuff, but it goes like what Sweep said. It goes a lot deeper than just that button.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Tatcha, did you have any thoughts on the importance of kind of newcomers or up and coming people or even existing people learning that
Yeah,
skill?
I do actually. It's with beat matching, you can't always rely on sync. Just remember that. Even though it's a tool, you can't rely on it because the software might not respond to it if you're doing live, it depends on what you're using. If you're on the internet, in a club, at a rave, if Serato Tractor or whatever you're using doesn't read it, it might not happen. So you could have a really bad train wreck, which you guys have heard my train wrecks before. So it could be worse than that. But the thing is I think it's very important to at some point in time learn beat matching because it's going to allow you to have more control of the track, a lot more control of what you want to do as a set. It's going to be able to and I agree with what Sweeby said, is be able to learn the drops, what's coming up next, and be able to mix that in properly. So I do think it is important at some point in time to learn beat matching and get into that habit and maybe use sync as a tool for something else.
And just one more thing, I've noticed, yes, the software's come a long way, but the beat matching is not always that, the BPM kind of detection when they analyze. It ain't always that great. It will
Yeah,
drift. It
you might
will
have to
drift.
you might have to bet. Like all the skills that you know from learning, like I'm not gonna say that knowing how to beat match is bad, because just like what Sweeb and Tatcha were both saying, there's a lot of reasons why the software might fuck up in a way where
Hmm.
having the skills of knowing how to perform when you do need to pitch shift come into play. Like knowing how to beat match makes my sync DJing a lot better because
Right.
again, I can just manage, like, because the sync doesn't just work right perfectly. I don't push that button and it's all butterflies. Like I have to still dial everything in. I still need to know that I need to move my grooves around. Maybe I noticed that this was a wave recording that I have off of somebody that recorded a vinyl with a turntable that wasn't consistent. And the whole time I'm playing this song, it's constantly losing a little bit of drive. So I'm going to have to, I have to constantly either keep pushing that track or move my pitch up or something, even though the grids all say everything's fine. Like having that skill set is definitely going to benefit you. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Patchett hit it right earlier. If you're starting out and you don't know, then just use it. But I think all of us, even though we say it's okay to use it, all of us probably agree that it's still a fucking great skill to have
yeah.
to pitch shift.
I'm super
So-
mixed when it comes to
pun
specifically the recommendation, because on one hand everything you guys just said is absolutely correct. Like having those skills already, like starting in 99 and having to do everything manually until I don't know, what was it like, Dan, you might know, when did I get my S4? Because it was right before I moved into that apartment. So what, like 2010?
No,
So
2012.
2012, yeah. So 12
got-
years there
It was
of doing it by ear, and so then coming into that
September
world,
2012.
yeah, it was all those skills transitioned over. And in fact, using sync was often more cumbersome than just doing it by hand. It was a lot easier for me to do it by hand. And I think in some cases it still is. But the big thing is, yeah, a lot of people don't realize the amount of work that goes into making things right so that sync works properly.
You bring up something hilarious about this topic. I remember going to like just a weird ass house party up in northeastern Ohio at some point, some like kind of personal rave. And when I got done with my set, a vinyl DJ wanted to come up and check out this is like 2010, so it was still kind of fresh for people. They weren't used to controllerism. And a vinyl DJ who I knew was a great DJ came over and wanted to play on my controller with sync and all that, and he fucking couldn't play. Right? Like he just couldn't do it because like there's so many weird little nuances and shit where it doesn't just make it an automatic.
Yeah, it's a different technology, and really you got to focus on those things like phrasing and lining up drops. You got to know about the small little fluctuations and nuances, especially when you're beat gridding. If you try to beat grid using only the visual cues that the software gives you. So for people that may not be familiar, when you're working in DJ software, you generally see like a waveform, like you would, if you dropped a sample into Ableton or something like that. And so you can just look at the transients and be like, well, this is where I need to drop all of my markers so that the software knows the timing of the track. But it's not, that visual representation isn't always that accurate. And so that's where your ear comes into play. And if your ear hasn't been trained for that sort of thing, you're kind of winging it. And you can hear it, in a lot of new DJs that may be using sync, which is great. But you'll hear those small inconsistencies, little phase problems, little offset problems where their transients are clicking, like 20 milliseconds behind each other. And you're like, and it seems like such a simple thing. And it's grating for people who've developed that particular skill. So I think it's still worth diving in. And even, if you got a pitch control, just use it a couple times by yourself. Even if you're like stalwartly against it, I support you in that. But and then just to touch on what I do really quick, if anybody watches my sets, you're welcome. And there's a camera on everything I do at all times. I kind of follow an 80-20 rule. Like I'm always matching by ear because like Tatchet said, it's my habit. It's what I do. And I actually use it more creatively to get into the groove. So I throw down a track, I've got it queuing in my headphones, and I'm moving the pitch fader because as the pitch, the tempo speeds up and then slows down and speeds up and slows down as I'm falling, just kind of drifting it into place. That creates a connection for me with the existing track and with the track that's coming in. So I get some kind of a tangible connection there where I feel a little
slide into that groove.
Yeah. And that then improves the mix because I start getting these kind of more musical ideas of how is this going to come in, what will it sound like? These two tracks are now kind of one in my head and I can kind of piece them together. Whereas if I go purely from sync, which I've done on a lot of, especially some bar gigs where maybe I didn't have access to good headphones because I was a dumbass and didn't bring mine for whatever reason, and I'm playing on a controller and the monitors are for shit and the house system is just a big wobble where you press play and you just hear brr, 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 brr. You're like, I don't know what's happening. So you're just trusting the screen, and it's difficult. And
very frustrating.
Yeah, at that point you just pretty much have to look at those controls, know them really well, and trust your kind of math skills. At that point it's counting, right. But yeah, 80-20 rule. So you will see me during sets on Twitch. I will engage sync sometimes. And in fact, I may do it a little bit more than I'd like to do it, specifically because my controller is kind of a giant piece of crap. The pitch controls that were built into those are very inaccurate to within plus minus 0.09. Which means you can dial it in and you can ride it for a while, but if you're doing anything over, say, like a 45-second mix, it's going to drift, and it drifts in funky ways because it not only is it off by a little bit, which is totally tolerable, and I could just nudge it and be happy.
Maybe the grid isn't perfect.
No, the grids are my grids are perfect, sir. Thank you for asking. No, so it's because it will actually glitch. It'll be plus, maybe plus 0.09, and then it'll go minus 0.07, and then plus 1.2.
You're actually getting some weird feedback from the potentiometer.
I can actually watch it on screen flickering every once in a while. It's like,
To be honest with you guys, just to cap this talk off, I literally have my pitch controllers on my controller turned off because they fucking do have some weird shit where they send like a tiny little bit of MIDI information, and I'll be playing and like having a great time, and I'm like, why the fuck is this track faster all of a sudden? Because it's so I've literally turned
Yep.
mine off because it's just more annoying than
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and also, you know, sync horrors. I'm sure all of you had run into this at some point if you've ever used sync, where you've synced to maybe an external piece of gear like a CDJ or something, and then you brought it back into your controller and you're doing some cutting and mixing, and then you bring in a new track and you go, oh, it syncs on, that's weird, and you disengage it and just grab it, and all of a sudden your entire program goes
Yep,
you're like,
yep.
oh no, what just happened? And
That
trying
normally
to
only happens to me with Tractor, but I get you. Yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes you got like sync and master sync and shit just
Yeah,
blows up.
yeah, it
I hate
becomes a
that shit.
nightmare. And
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I prefer to do it by ear, but you know, I clearly see the benefit of sync, and especially when we get into, like you were saying, effect timing, beat grids have to be on point. You know, we don't hear anybody going after producers because, oh, they busted out Replica and did a dotted eighth note. Why would they do a dotted eighth note? They should just do it by ear. It's like, no, come on, don't be stupid. Like,
The
we're
dotted eighths are the best.
Just got Replica, by the way, on a side note. Love that thing.
yeah, it's a good one.
Super clean.
Dan, you wanted to jump in with something?
Yeah.
Jump in.
All right. So a few things. Well, I didn't want to. You guys are actually active DJs, so I didn't want to. I don't want to like.
You
Not an active
earned your-
DJ,
you earned your
but I
stripes,
do have.
man. Come on.
I did want to hit this insight up. So, right at the very beginning, Annias, you said that it's the least creative. It's not even creative at all to beat match.
Well,
And
like I
that
said,
took
you
me-
could be creative with it. You could take like really weird down tempo tracks and run them at like 150 BPM or something. You could be like strangely creative, but it's not very.
It's not actually creativity. So, and I got into this argument. It took me back to a cornfield in DeKalb, getting into this argument at 5 a.m. with Kevin
Sure.
Sender, who anybody who actually knows him knows he's kind of like a
Great
D-bag.
conversations happen in cornfields, man.
He also owes me like 15K.
Fourth encounter's
so-
a butt thing.
Anyway, so this guy was like, "No, man, that's where the creativity happens." And I remember it vividly because I was like, "How could it possibly be creative?" Oh, Danny Livewire also was like on the beat matching is a creative thing, and I was like, "You guys don't really understand what the word creativity means because there's nothing creative about getting two tempos synced. It's literally just like the mortar. It's a utility. It's a script. It's not a creative.
Right.
It does a thing. It's a
Dan,
it's
it's
a
not how
action
you
button.
it's not how you plug the RCAs and the ground cable from the turntable into the mixer, or it's not where you plug it in. It's how you plug it in.
How you tie the
Yeah.
knot and the wire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to creatively finesse it in there.
But what's interesting, so while those guys
Love
were
it.
definitely wrong, and I very much told them so back then, and they're not even people I talk to today, mostly because I think they're idiots. But here we are in 2019, and I am, I do the synth thing, and I'm like Mr. No laptop guy. I actively developed like a dislike for seeing performances on laptop. Ableton performances, like live performances, started to really bore me. I started thinking they all sounded the same. I really started to yearn for a return to analog, and that was a few years ago. And that's the direction I took my live PA in. And I feel somewhat similarly about seeing someone DJing in a live environment on a laptop. I just gotta say it. If you go out and you hook up a laptop, I feel like there's like a disconnect that happens, and it does start to make it less
Let me-
engaging to me. I
let me
prefer
speak
seeing
to you on that.
CDJs over that even.
Well, let me speak to you on that, which is that, and I'll let you jump right in there, Tatch. I just want to say the reason why did I switch away from DJing on 1200s? I'll tell you the exact reason why. 2009, I was playing at a festival, and it was outdoor, a bunch of tent, a couple thousand tents or whatever. It was a real good time, and they had 1200s there. I brought my own Rain TTM 57 SL with Serato in it, control vinyl. I was ready to bang.
I heart that controller, by the way.
What's that?
I heart that mixer, by the way.
The TTM 57 SL is a wonderful piece. That thing is
Mm.
that is just a phenomenal mix. You're right. I have a very fond place for it in my heart as well. So I'm playing this set, and I've been producing for 12 years at this point, right? And I had a whole bunch of my own tracks that aren't on vinyl. I've got the same position I'm in now, but a bunch of friends' tracks that aren't on vinyl. So I'm using control vinyl, using a Scratch Live setup. Serato setup, and so first thing that happened was it was late summer and there was a ton of particulate in the air, and I was in an outdoor. It was an outdoor festival in the middle of the woods somewhere in northeastern Ohio. So I had a whole bunch of dust and leaves and bullshit or whatever, just kind of like getting on my vinyl, my control vinyl, to the point
Ohio
where
stink.
I was literally having to clean my control or clean my needles between every track just to keep a control signal. And then aside from that, I literally had 2 different 1200s during that set fail on me during that set, and they had to come and replace it with another one. And so I was going through all this, and I was just thinking, like, I'm already playing, like, I'm making all this music. It's already in all digital. Like, I already have a bunch of MIDI controllers and shit, and I'm used to all this stuff, and this is what I do at home. I'm like, my thought on it, Dan, was I want to provide the most compelling, like, consistent mix experience for my audience, because I have this message that I want to get out to them, and I don't really like having a bunch of unnecessary physiological bullshit like causing problems. Now, granted, I've got a computer here, a laptop. It's got all of its hardware, and it's got a fan. I guess I've got SSDs now, but you could say it's got a hard drive platter. Sure, it's got some things that could go wrong, but I just felt like taking the move to digital at that point made the most sense for me on a functional level for providing the audience the best experience. So that's
It's
why I went
interesting
that
that
way.
reliability is the reason, because 1200s have quite a reputation for reliability. I mean, what kind of terrible luck is
Normally
it
it's
for
all
two
good,
of them
but
to go down in
yeah,
one
it was
set?
crazy. But it was the combination of things though. It was like my control signal and the fucking the tables going out, and just all the. It just started getting to me to where I was like, man, I just want to have the gear setup that I can have that let me make the most consistent performance. And I found that for the most part over the last 10 years of doing it with this setup, I fucking love it. Like, I
I
love it
think,
on an execution level. Everybody gets a great product on the other side.
but as far as reliability goes, I think more people have an impression that laptops are actually a weak link. There's a lot of things that can happen to a laptop. The same kind of environmental pressures that could take out a Technics would probably disintegrate a laptop. Laptops can have weird services in the background that start to ping and use the CPU and can start screwing
Sure,
things up. There's a
sure.
lot of different things that can happen with laptops that make them actually, in and I don't have like data to back this up, but I'm pretty sure less reliable than just running
Uh,
uh two 1200s
Well,
or
that's
two
the thing.
CDJs, as it
12
were.
1200s have an impeccable service record. Like, they are truly workhorses. Unfortunately, needles are not. The
Right.
connection of the cartridge to the tone arm is not. The vinyl is not. The pitch fader in the 1200 is pretty suspect if it's not serviced well. The cables that connect it to the thing. So, like, yeah, there's a bunch of things. And you're right. The laptops also have some shortcomings, and that's actually one of my bones to pick with a lot of new digital DJs, especially, is that they show up with some absolute piece of crap that hasn't been maintained or optimized at all, and then they have problems at a gig, and you're face palming. You're like, get off the stage. You are not ready for this. Like, you need
Or
to
just
go back home, work on your shit, and come back when you're serious about doing a set. It's just like any other piece of equipment. You're not going to show up to on your stream or to a show and have your OB6 with some scratchy ass filter pot. Like, you would get that maintained. You don't just go, oh, I don't know, I guess the audience can deal with it because it's just old. Like, no, that's not acceptable. You need to take care of it. You're a musician. The guitarist doesn't show up on stage with 3 strings because, I don't know, I broke 3 the other day and I couldn't be asked to change them. It's like, dude, come on.
right. No.
Yeah, I agree. You should maintain your gear, and I think it's easier to maintain 1200s. I mean, and look, that's just my opinion. As far as reliability, that's been my perception, and
Sure.
I think honestly, if you pay attention and you're careful with it, if you know what background services you're running, and you can uninstall them. But I know at least one person who had a badass laptop, and they bought it for the purposes of doing music live, and Dell had installed some fucking bloatware in the background that started pinging, and it started screwing up. It
Hey,
happened live on a stream. Saw it
to your
happen, and it's
credit,
a person who knows more about computers than literally anybody I know, and it happened to them.
hey, to
There's
your
a
credit, Dan. I
reliability
don't
thing
think
there.
to your credit, Dan. Other than that incident that I mentioned to you, which was quite odd because it was two different tables. I don't think I had that many problems with tables over the prior decade to that. But it just kind of it snowballed because it was such a frustrating event. I was like, fuck it. I
Yeah.
think went to the Guitar Center the next week and bought this controller that I
There
have.
are events where I would not even think about using turntables. I wouldn't use them on a cruise ship.
Or like physical stuff. Like if you're playing with 50,000 watts and it's not really well set up and it's just shaking the shit out of your stuff, or people bumping into your DJ. There's a lot of reasons. There's
Burning Man,
but-
like the sand getting in the turntables.
Oh,
Another
man, I can't
issue with
even imagine.
turntables is
I can't
bass
imagine
feedback.
using any gear in the desert. That's a different.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I would want to bring anything up, but people definitely do. There is lots of music.
Controllers abound at Burning Man for that very reason. Lots of CDJs too, but
afterwards.
yeah.
There's a lot of
yeah.
controllers too that don't require you to have your laptop with you as well.
Oh, those are cool. Standalone controllers are super.
Yeah, my NS7 will allow me to plug in either a hard drive or a USB
That's sick
stick,
as fuck.
whatever.
I like that.
I do
that's
not
probably the
need a
best of both
laptop
worlds.
at all, and
That's
that's
the
why
best
I
of
like
both.
the screens. Yeah,
You're
that's
good.
one of the reasons why I bought it. It was it can
I
do
love
whatever
that.
I
I
want.
love that. When you can, that's
Yeah.
why I said earlier during that conversation when I said CDJs were kind of irrelevant, but now they're kind of controllers. That's the way I felt about it. It's like, if you can go and stick your USB into your system and it's a standalone, you basically have like a fancy controller. But that's cool though. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it's
Whatever
stable and
works.
it's cool. Interesting thing about that is people got used to CDJs, and now that they become controllers, the same form factor is in a ton of control-based systems. The same
Well, yeah, I
platter.
think even Pioneer was making like their CDJs MIDI. They sent MIDI info and their mixer sent MIDI, so I think they were kind of heading that way the whole time.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning too on the reliability side. I know a lot of people already know this, but modern CDJs, XDJs, anything kind of the latest generation, I think even the previous generation, once you've got a track loaded, regardless of the source, I believe that if your source goes away, USB stick gets plugged out, computer gets unplugged, whatever, you have everything locally cached in memory. So you can at least finish that particular track as long as the CDJ is still powered.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So real quick, I don't want to come off this topic necessarily, but I want to spend some time doing shout outs.
Sure.
Bunch of folks who are watching right now, everyone, if you aren't currently following, these are the folks that I know that I go to their sets. There may be others. Everyone feel free to drop links in chat. But A Bridgewater is that they're in our Discord a lot. They're pretty wonderful. They're super
awesome.
smart, electrical, as well as like I think an
Coding.
expert in knitting. I saw earlier today.
Yes, apparently
knitting.
so.
Everyone follow Annias.
Yep.
Everyone give David Miner a follow. Deej. DJ Jungle Groove is new to Twitch, but not new to streaming, and also totally awesome. Going to be playing on Saturday for our Saturday night's main event that we do every single Saturday. So please, everyone, go give Jungle Groove a follow. Obviously, Tatch It. Everyone give Dequel Live, who does a live PA 3 times a week, a follow. I don't know a few of you, and absolutely, if I'm not calling you out, feel free to drop your name in there. Krista Mello has been spinning lately. I listened at the end of the day while I was working today, and there I think like Hayes was the only other person there, and Hayes is not here right now. But everyone, please go give Krista Mello a follow. I don't know why, but there was only 2 people watching. Dropped in, and where are they now? And it was great. I enjoyed the whole thing. So everyone, please go give Chris a follow. Scott Denisi, Mr. Pinball and Techno, brings a unique edge to everything. Tremendum Labs, the Glitch Masters. Anyone that I missed, drop your links. And yeah. Anyway, back to
And Metallic Lace, thank you for the
I was gonna say,
follow.
Oh, did I go over
Yeah.
Metallic?
Yep.
Good job.
Metallic.
I don't see her in the list.
She just
Yeah,
followed.
I appreciate you sharing all these, Dan. Like one thing is when I'm streaming all the time, our music community is small but growing here on Twitch. Even with the folks that I know, oftentimes I'll get done with the stream and I don't see a music person on. Probably just because there's that I know. So it's nice to get introduced to a lot of your guys' community, and I'll definitely pass the love along.
Yeah,
Aw.
that's kind of what we're trying to do with Shrimp Cruise. We're trying to make sure that not just one artist's Discord. It's a collective that a lot of people can come together in on. Anyway, I apologize for missing you, Metallic. You're awesome. Metallic is not a music streamer. Metallic does various creative projects, also plays games, and is a super nice, super cool person. Hopefully, going to be on Gear-Splaining to talk about drawing. And I don't know if she knows that I'm trying to get her on here. But
Yeah, definitely more creative stuff too. So give her a follow, check out her stream, and tangentially related to Gear-Splaining. Yeah, she will be on to discuss at some point the mic setup and mixer and going through the woes of figuring out the balance between compression and noise gate and everything else to make the stream as perfect as possible.
I say it a lot. The thing that we're doing here is we're coming together for music. We're coming together for music and art and being a community. It's a way that we can continue to be creative and explore a passion, even as the years click by and it becomes hard to get to that cornfield in DeKalb or Iowa or the warehouse in Chicago or whatever it is for everybody else. It's a way to connect. Most of the people that listen to each other's streams are fellow creators, and you need to be able to support each other's art. You need to be able to support each other's efforts. So everyone be excellent to each other. Give follows. Go listen. And yeah, that's my spiel. Shrimp Crew.
Shrimp Crew.
Yeah.
Oh, is Sopiak still on? Hold on. Damn it! I screwed it up again. I told Sopiak I would tell the story of why we're called Shrimp Crew, and like 2 weeks in now, I've screwed that up, and he went left. He probably went to bed.
He's gone.
So
Aw.
sorry, Sopiak. I guess next week I'll tell the story.
Next week.
Who was it that asked about keys and whatnot, Jungle? I was just going to let you know. I think we're still going to get to that here.
Yeah, we can just get into that
Yeah.
now if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well,
Yeah,
I
let's
mentioned
actually hold on. Let's start backwards. Sweeby, kick us off with key mixing. Is it something that you use? Is it something that's on your radar? How do you use it? What do you use?
Yeah, basically the easy answer is yes. You know, like I said, I jump a lot, and it does make it more difficult. You know, especially with some of the stuff I play. You know, going from an A minor to something like an F, it makes it rough. But when I can do it, you have to do it. Why do you have to do it? Because it sounds harmonically balanced. Even if you just do, even if you're a dubstep DJ or a house DJ or trance DJ, you know, if you'll know the difference if you've never done key mixing and you do it the first time, you'll hear the difference. You'll hear the difference. It's like fluidity is nothing else. It's amazing. Now, can I do it every time? No, I can't. You know, if I'm dropping from electro to house or up to something like happy hardcore, old school, sometimes you can, but that's when filters and other things come in, which I think we're going to speak about in a little bit. That help mask some of the clashing. Is definitely a clashing. So yes, I do. When I can, I do it. But like I said, sometimes I can't. So you just kind of gotta, again, you know, use what features your controller has, what software has, to make it as soft as possible if you can key. But I would definitely, that's more important to me than beat matching.
Yeah, two quick things real quick. One, A Bridgewater, I almost said that so close, figured I'd lay off because I did it on my last stream. Next time, Gadget. The other one, Eli, I've heard you said that you haven't mixed in key in 10 years and you must be doing it wrong. No, you know what? I think that there's an exception in that case. So if you know your music, generally, if you're somebody who does play by ear, you kind of know when you get kind of, harmonic pairings or disharmony like that. That's really obvious where you're like, oh, that kind of sounds like butt. That's not a mix I'm going to do. But you know, so when we say key mixing, it may be something that you're just doing already just by feel, or it could be something that you're using some kind of tool. And if so, what kind of tools are you using? And you know, does that dictate the flow of your mix? Real quick follow-up for you, Sweeby. Do you ever use the key shift functions on your controller or in your software? Okay.
No. Again, you know, it would probably help me. Like I said, I think I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to DJing. I really don't use, there's a lot of tools that's out there, even whether it's software or on the controller or my mixer, that probably could help my life a little bit, but no.
Well, I think there's something to be said for purists as well. There's some people who really, they feel strongly about pushing a track let's say a well-known track too far out of BPM, for example, where you're going way too high in pitch or way too low in pitch, and it really sounds kind of distorted. Not distorted from an audio, kind of stretching standpoint, but just from a musical presentation standpoint. And then also, some people, you shift the key, it really does change the character of a track. And so there's appropriate times for that and inappropriate times. So I don't think that your path is by any stretch necessarily a glutton for punishment.
Right. See, I use the key lock. I just don't use the key shift.
Yeah.
With the pitch slide, the pitch control. Yes, I definitely have to use that because, you're going to go up keys way beyond heaven if you push it too far. But no, like I said, it just keeps me on my toes. I enjoy just keeping that, what's going on next kind of thing. But yeah, again, if you don't use it, it doesn't sound like a train wreck. I've heard many genres where people don't use it, and it doesn't sound that bad. It really doesn't. But it's just for me again. You just learn by ear. You can hear it when something's coming in. It's not key, but it doesn't make you sound bad, and you're not bad. I just like I said, I try to do it right for my own standards type thing.
Nice. Tatchet, how about you?
I will use it. I mostly do it by ear, but sometimes there's the tracks that have been produced that the vocals are kind of off, and it just doesn't sound right. And sometimes I will fluctuate the keys to try to match what I previously have. And I don't come across a lot of those tracks, but sometimes it's just won't sound right, and it would be way too shocking if I didn't use it. But normally I will do it by ear, and that's just by using my low and mids, and trying to eliminate what I don't need and use what I need to use. So but I
Nice.
don't use it as often as I do it by.
And Annias, how about you?
I mix in key like 99% of the time. So I just pre-scan all my selected tracks that I have, so I know what key they're all in, and I generally just travel around the circle of fifths quite a bit. A lot of that has to do with other factors, such as I usually have a very finely selected selection of maybe 1,500, 2,000 tracks, and they're all set up in a particular categorization where I can travel through that categorization via the circle of fifths and just know that I'm going to have a pretty decent time. But to comment, though, just like these other guys had a few extra things to say. Sometimes just because two songs are in the same key doesn't mean that they're going to fucking work together. They might be in the same key, but they might be in different scales, and it might just sound like trash. So, just like the other topic, like sync and different things like that, even though something is supposed to work one way, mixing in key isn't just written in stone, and you have to use your ears and know what does or doesn't sound good. I think, like what Eli was talking about, is super important. A lot of time, mixing in key doesn't necessarily drive my selection. When I say I'm mixing key 99% of the time, I mean that. But
Right.
or maybe let's say 95%, because the other 5% is maybe I want to do topical stuff. Maybe I want to play 7 tracks about aliens, right? And they don't, and maybe they're at 2A, 5A, 7A, 9A. Maybe they're spread all over this thing. Well, I'm just gonna have to find some creative ways, and like Sweeby said, use some effects and some different shit to like mask some aspects of it to make it work if I want to do that. So I do mixing key almost all the time. If you guys ever tune in and look, you'll see my shit is just moving right up and down the circle of fifths in weird ways, or in inappropriate ways. But I also don't at all limit myself to that. Like, I just happen to have a large enough selection where I can pretty much do that, and it works out fine. But I'm not afraid to deviate from it as well.
Yep. And
I might want to go to like a third or a fifth or a seventh or something that's not in the key that I'm in that just harmonically works with what I'm doing.
Yep.
But there's so many other factors. They're like, does the fucking grooves work? And
yep.
There's just so many other factors. So it's not always the key component, no pun intended, but
yeah, I'd say for me in a 60 track set, I maybe all but 3 or 4 will be harmonically mixed. So I'm in the same boat. Like 95% of them are going to be harmonically mixed. Where I might deviate, majors. Majors are probably a big one, because majors are always kind of stinkers, especially if you're spinning something that is dark by design, like techno or anything like that. Pulling up into a major is always just going to be kind of a production. The other thing that I do like to do, even though I'm mixing harmonically, is oftentimes I'll want to jump to, completely the other side of the circle of fifths. And so I'll jump into something, find that coincident key, and mix that in. So,
you just want to get away from that part of your selection and go to some other
just jump to the other side of the key sorted playlist and go start playing there.
You
And
find some like cool.
Do you guys take any consideration for utilitarian perspectives, i.e., certain? Well, okay, the lower you go, eventually you lose audibility.
Yep.
I believe somewhere around low F. If you mix away from that, couldn't you be lowering the amount of boom that you're delivering?
Yeah, so one of the things that the Circle of Fifths is kind of known for is kind of that increase energy, decrease energy characteristic of it. And so, yeah, that comes into play, and that's often where a lot of those big key jumps will come from for me, where I'll go into a deep, dark hole and I need to get out of it, but I don't want to emerge from it over the course of the next 45 minutes. I want to go right now and change the mood. And so I'll find one of those coincident keys where it's like it's not a direct match. These are not perfect harmonics, but they're close harmonics, and they'll work together, and then put them together in a way, maybe just mixing during the percussion, or mixing during a part where there is maybe just a bass line, some low feature that I can layer something on top of and get a nice little interesting harmonic going on.
I think most producers these days, Dan, are familiar with the fact that if you go below D sharp on your subs, that you're gonna, start losing like 95% of all sound systems you might play on. So what I find is if a song happens to come up as maybe it's in like C or C sharp or some shit, you're still gonna find that the bass, like of a good, well mastered modern track, like no engineer is gonna let a song through. I mean, unless the producer just doesn't care, they're not gonna let a song through with like a C sharp subline or whatever. What you'll find is that the song may be rooted at some lower key, but the subs are probably still going to be written in like D and F and shit. Like, you're even if it's got a weird lower root, you're probably not going to get into a place where like you're not getting audible subs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I didn't think about it at the time. But Dan, you're actually right. Occasionally, that is a very, like Annias was saying, it's pretty uncommon, but occasionally you will run into a track that is totally sick, but it's also totally, sub-audible in the area where you're mixing. Maybe you're throwing like a down-tempo 122 set, and you're like, oh, damn, this is just like flutter. And so, yeah, I'll kick it up a couple of octaves.
If you change the tempo without a pitch lock, and then maybe take the sub into a fucking inaudible place.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Totally
so I have used it in that context as well.
Yeah. Now, to address what you had asked the other guys earlier, Co, I'm not a big fan of using either pitch shifting on my tracks when I'm mixing, and I also don't like using pitch lock. I'm like Tatch It though. I will use it occasionally if there's like, if I have to move a vocal track so far that they sound like a fucking chipmunk, or they sound, like Luther Vandross or something, and I need to find some happy minimum or medium,
What's wrong with
like,
Luther?
that's the only,
Let's not be talking shit on Luther.
that's the well, he's good. It's just bassy, So that's the only case. Otherwise, like I kind of feel the way that you do, Co. I don't like the way that the algorithms like affect our sound, and I didn't think about the way that would impact key mixing, like from what Dan was saying, where if you do pitch lock or you do pitch shift, and then you take a track slower and go down, you got to watch to keep your sub from going out of D sharp.
And so, one more little interesting note. I have nothing against it. In fact, I used to use it all the time when I was on Tractor, but these days, this is more of an observation. I don't use key lock ever. I probably should, but I haven't. And I think I've been enjoying the flexibility in kind of dialing in the key using key shifting. So. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I just kind of guesstimate it. Like if I move, because again, most of my stuff, unless I'm playing drum and bass, most of my stuff in dubs like 138 to 140, so I don't have to worry about too much pitch shift.
Yeah.
So there's some science behind why you don't want to shift pitch too much. So the first thing is if you shift pitch, you're not shifting formats. I highly doubt that if you did it, you could do it on like an individual track, like a vocal, and you could get good effect off of it, but you're not going to be able to do it to a multi-timbral track, an entire song, you can't.
Extra artifacts
Your
too
stuff
much.
isn't going to shift the formats. It's just going to do a time shift and then a pitch shift, and then the formats are going to get chipmunky or they're going to get real like Satan bassy, right? If you guys all know.
Satan Basie's good though.
Well, I found different ways to interact with it. Like Dan, like I actually use my DJ software occasionally, like Virtual DJ. I use it if I'm going to remix a track. Like this is an interesting aside to keys and how our software, affects keys. So every once in a while, if I'm going to do a remix and I've got a vocal that's that I'm taking down to maybe it's a 180 or I'm taking it down to 140. Well, I don't. Like sometimes I'll just let the voice go all the way down, and people will be like, "Well, she sounds like a dude." Like I'll take a female hip hop artist, and it'll sound real low or whatever, or vice versa. And I don't mind that sometimes because I just like it being different. But if I do use the algorithms in some of our DJ software, I actually found there's a way to do a happy medium, and I guess you could technically put this to use in your key mixing, like Sweeb, with the way that you do use that stuff. I have found that, and this would be weird to do on the fly because I have all day to do it in production. But if I have to go from here to, let me change this. If I have to go from here to here, where's my camera at? I don't know. If I have to go from a large section, I can't see what you guys can see. Instead of taking it from the top to the new BPM and getting like a large amount of that timbre artifact type shit that Dan was talking about, I'll go halfway down. So if I have to go, I'll like non pitch corrected, shift it halfway towards where I want to go, then turn on the key, then turn on the pitch lock, and then move it the other half. And what happens is like I still get to the tempo that I want, but without it doing the crazy artifacting. Like I found a way to kind of cheat that system by instead of going, just go halfway and then move it. And I don't know how useful that might be for you DJing on the fly. But I guess it could help.
Yeah, one thing that I think is worth mentioning, especially for Dan, who might not have had a lot of the experience with some of the newer DJ software, and you bring up a good point about format and about really changing sonic characteristics as you're pitching up or pitching down. All of the DJ software these days has things to correct for that. So you're very flexible with where you kind of shift the key. You can shift up in semitones, you can shift up in octaves while maintaining, say, various other characteristics. So you can change maybe just the tempo and remain at the exact same key that you've been in, or you can change them concurrently, or you can have them actually drift apart entirely and not even be related. So you have tons of flexibility there these days that you just didn't have on a turntable where it's like, well, I sped it up to +8. Now, let's see what happens.
I just want to throw this out there for the guys that don't do a lot of production, for the DJs that don't do a lot of production. If you want to really get crazy on that topic and you're not having to do it like live, if you are putting together a set for a big festival you got or something like that, you can start to interact with like Ableton and FL Studio and some of the other software that's out there, because they have multiple different types of algorithms that you can use to do these same shiftings. So you guys can still take your material and do some of these like more difficult shifts and get, if you have to play this song after this song and you got to find a way to make it work, but it sounds like shit in your program. Well, there are other ways that you can look about shifting your tracks around too.
Yeah.
So don't give up hope.
One more note for anybody that's trying to spin a track that's either an older or analog recording, or perhaps it was a band where they weren't perfectly in time. You can take a recording of those tracks, drop it into Ableton, and use their warp function to go ahead and just straighten up that beat grid, drop it back into your DJ software, reanalyze, and you're good to go.
And when you hear people doing that stuff to like the Bee Gees or some shit where it was a band recording, you're like, oh, they had to do that in Ableton because they're straightening it out.
Yeah.
So there are external ways to do all this stuff that we're talking about that can help.
We need an introduction though. We need, every time Coase says something very intellectual that's awesome, we need a more to know go up above his head.
Ding, ding, ding,
I was just visualizing that. I was like, more to know. Coherence has a lot of good information.
Yeah, he's
So
great.
If you're doing production, it's worth noting the range that which hits a sub is A0 to A1. Well, all those will drive a sub. However, F is really your sweetest spot, and as soon as you start going below F, you start to get a drop off from the bell curve at which most subs are tuned to really boom. So you want to be around there. You will still be audible though.
Our general rule of thumb in the deep dub community is we don't go any lower than D sharp, because that gets you right around the 30, 31 hertz range, which your subs in any club aren't going to be below. And so most of the time you don't really see, unless somebody doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, you don't see them writing in like D sharp and D and C. Funny story, when I first started producing, I used to write all my songs in C because that's what the DAW started on, and I just thought I
Yeah.
should write. So it took me some years to realize that was dumb. But yeah, like for us, anything above D sharp tends to work out. Like, you can get 31 out of these systems, but below that it starts to get real. You're just not gonna have any bass.
E and
Absolutely.
F are
And
killer.
that's bad. That's bad. You must have bass.
For
The more
everybody
you
who's
know.
trying to figure out what we're talking, I mean, Gear-Splaining crew, I think, probably understands like how, like, you look at the frequencies and the actual diatonic scale, you'll notice that, like what Dan was saying, right at F, I think you're at like 30. I can't remember what it is, 34.
43.
Oh, 43. Yeah, and then right as you go between 40 down to 30, you're just going to get a lot less response out of most of these clubs. So it is something to keep in consideration when you're looking at your keys. But mostly will only come into play, like I said, if you're already close. And then, like, if I have a track that's in F, here, let's give them a practical example, Dan. If I have a track that's in F and it's at 160 BPM and I want to mix it at 135 BPM, it may start to go into a range where the bass might not be that audible.
Yep,
Because
you're gonna lose the bass if you do
it-
that without holding the pitch.
Exactly. So, these are this is why he was bringing that up, because there's situations you get into where that shit happens.
And this matters more for styles that use a sub bass or use 808 style bass lines. Those kind
Drum
of
and bass,
production
dub,
techniques,
yeah.
drum and bass and dub. If you're doing techno and you have a 909 anchoring that shit, it's not going to make a difference at all. That 909 is already right at the sweet spot, almost assuredly.
Sure.
And same thing for house. It's really when you're talking about, it's really when you're talking about
When you have a
folks
lot
who
more
run a
dynamic
straight up
low
sine
end.
wave underneath everything.
Well, one thing that makes sense with what you're saying, though, and people should know just on the production side is one reason that it's good to root in F is that if you're rooted in F, you still have just a little bit of room below you to create your melodies, right? That's why we root in F mostly, because if you root it in D sharp, you have nowhere to go underneath, really. You have very little place to take the bass lower. So yeah, it's good to root in F for sure.
Yeah, and F is at the top of the bell curve for most subs.
If you if anybody looks inside their Serato or record box or whatever and looks at, like, most of your fucking tracks will be an F. Like a lot of them will.
I've got to organize my tracks first. Done that yet, and it's been many
I promise if you
years.
take a look at it, you'll see like the majority of them are probably an F. It's crazy.
All right,
like
so
it.
that's pretty interesting that we covered that, and I hope that a lot of people got something out of that. Because I think that's mysterious for a lot of people. Even advanced producers don't necessarily they if you're using your monitors at home, they have a range that could extend further. Headphones can as well, and
That
they
is
may
a
not
little subtle issue.
really be thinking about the utilitarian of what key you're in. Most people think about the key they're in because the keys they like to play in, but there's really a
There is a
utility
practical
aspect
place, yeah, for sure.
that needs to be considered. So we have a few more topics, and I think we're getting a little bit near the end of the time we usually spend on this. So what do we want to cover in the last 15 minutes here? And we can certainly go into overtime. That's not a rule, but we have more topics than we wanted. Than I think we really practically.
Let's do a
time
quick
for.
lightning round. Keep all of your answers to 15 seconds or less. Here we go. Pads, Annias, go. Pads. Do you use them?
I wish I could answer you in 15 seconds, but when you brought this up on the pre-show, I didn't know what you meant by pads. Do you mean just like actual buttons that I can press to do things?
Velocity sensitive pads on controllers or anything else, or even Q pads, whatever.
Like playing live, not very often. Not very often.
Cool.
I have a few things I can manually queue up, like maybe a fucking dub siren or something.
Yeah. Yep. Pads, touch it.
Really?
Tads.
Yes, I do use
DJ
them.
Rattlesnake.
I know. I use the. Did you call me DJ Rattlesnake?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Yes, I do use them. I use them quite often, especially when looping and when I want to add extra beats in. My controller actually allows me to do that. It acts as a drum machine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Sweeby, pads.
Yes, sir. I use them mainly for transition tracks, drum and bass and stuff, and some other sweet effects very simple, simplistic, but they go a long way. Yep.
I can't live
100%.
without them
Yes,
anymore. Use them for
Yep.
quick queuing, slicing, and for queue jumping.
Yep.
I love pads. I like getting them off my OB6 because it
All
sounds
about the
more
pads.
fat.
Next one, starting with annias, effects.
Yeah, minimal use of effects, maybe some delays to do some transitions, occasionally a filter sweep, but as minimal as possible. I'm more of a deep purist mixer. I don't like. I do beat grid occasionally if I'm super fucking bored, but that's it.
Nice. Touch it.
I do use them. It really depends on where I'm set. So it will be probably maybe 60% of the time.
Sweeby.
Stop smoking.
Echoes when it comes between two vocals and tracks. LFO I like to use as the breakdowns coming in, and then slip roll. I like to use a slip roll with some echo just as the break smangs down. Yep,
Nice.
love them. Love them.
I eat,
I love effects.
breathe, sleep, and defecate delay.
Oh my
Also,
God. Yeah,
really
for
love
sure.
really love a version echo. Also
Gotta
love a pitch shifted echo, a very light one, maybe like a 32nd or 16th note.
Sure.
And of course, our glorious
Oh my lord.
bandpass filters.
Oh yeah, the filters.
I hope you
Ooh.
don't poop all those out. It might hurt.
No, I also
time.
occasionally use a bit crusher, and a little bit of auto pan. Very
Nice.
light, discrete auto pan for a bit of flourish. Dan?
I love filters. I could talk about filters all day. I could talk about my favorite filters. I could talk about the actual electrical design of my favorite filters.
Tell me more
Uh,
about the sim.
I dream about filters. I philosophize
You
about
are
filters.
a filter.
I think that filters are a way of looking at life. Filters
Do you
are
mean it?
definitely my favorite effect, and I use them all the fucking time.
Sure.
60% of the time, it works 100% of the time.
Oh yeah. Where you
Fuck
at?
yeah.
Where you at on delays, Dan?
Yeah, I like delays a lot
I
too.
love 'em.
Yeah.
Yep.
That cigarette, though, Sweebs. Seriously, it sounds like you're like smoking something else.
He's crackling it.
Are you
Oh,
crackling?
He is from Florida, so I'm gonna guess.
All right. So this
it's
next one,
Gator meth.
speed round, 1 minute, and this will be hard to comprise into 1 minute. But we'll start with Annias. Set planning, music selection, and the DJ versus producer approach in doing so. Go.
Oof, man, this is a rough one, especially for a minute.
Yeah, it's a personal thing, but do what you can.
Like I have a couple different contexts in which I do my performances. It really depends on what I'm doing. If I'm playing a dive bar, then I don't mind just playing a random set. If I'm playing a show for a couple thousand people or more, I generally like to spend time pre-planning my set, and I like to plan most of my set out and then practice and perform it, and then do a lot of improvisation, throughout that accordingly. My philosophy is, a lot of people say, "Oh, you want to play to the crowd," but my thing is like, I'm not in a genre where I'm trying to play to the crowd. I'm in a fucking very niche subgenre of electronic music, and I have my own. Like, I'm a producer, so I have my own stuff, and I have my own vision of what I'm trying to share. And then specifically as a DJ artist, I also feel the same way. Like, I'm not really here to like play what the fuck you want to hear off of whatever you think you want to hear. Like, I have a real specific thing that I want to share with you, and I want to deliver that to you. So I will both play freestyle. Like, a lot of times when you see me on Twitch, I'll play somewhere between a 2 and an 8 hour set. And generally speaking, I don't have any idea what I'm going to play. Maybe I have a subgenre or whatever, but I'll just play randomly. Or maybe I'll even specifically be playing out of the 150 new tracks that I just got. I've never even heard them before, but I can navigate them by key and just kind of introduce myself to them and have a lot of fun. So I don't mind freestyling and have a lot of fun, but I also value and appreciate when somebody takes the time to put together something fucking amazing and then performs that. The only thing that I wouldn't like as far as that topic is concerned is if somebody showed up with a pre-recorded CD and put it in and pretended like they were mixing.
Yep.
I don't mind if you pre-plan. I don't mind if you set up a performance and then want to just literally autobot that shit out in front of me. That's fine. I don't care, as long as you're it's the same for me as if you're spending time looking for tracks or whatever. If you're taking the time to fucking build something beautiful and then you want to share it, that's great. So play freestyle, play pre-planned, whatever you want in between there. Just don't come with a CD and pretend like you're fucking DJing and you're good.
Set planning,
My
touch
wife's
it.
cousin did that.
Ooh.
This
And
video
anything
of him,
short of
like,
that,
it
anything
ruined his
short of that is
DJ career.
acceptable to me.
Shame,
Gosh,
shame,
Anything
His
short-
highest profile gig ever
Shame.
is soundbar at 11 o'clock.
shame.
Look, anything short of that is acceptable. I know I'm going over my 1 minute, but I want to share this, Co. Anything short of that is acceptable to me, and I'll tell you why. Say you were in a situation where you're playing like a New Year's Eve show with 50,000 people. You've got a custom like Amon Tobin ISAM 3D mapped visual setup that's got a visual set that's fucking defined to a set that you're gonna be like. Do you think it? Or say you're Madonna and you've got a fucking multi-million-dollar tour and you've got a set to play through. Do you think these motherfuckers show up the day of the gig and are like, I guess we'll figure out what we're gonna do? Like they know what they're gonna do and they do it. And that I can still respect, you know. And people need to stop thinking about that. I think people need to stop thinking about that topic like, oh, it has to be so fucking, you know, you have to have no idea what you're going to do before you do it, or it's not any good. I don't think that's relevant.
Yeah, but to a degree, isn't that different for a DJ? I mean, I know maybe for Robin Tobin, it's not. He's definitely doing a different thing. But I mean, I grew up like the drop bass methodology. You didn't even know where the DJ was. At some point, DJs started getting on stage. It became like a concert. But when you didn't know where they were, and it was more of like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, it didn't matter. And they didn't program. They shot from the hip and
it's about context though, Dan. Are we in a dive bar or are we playing for 50,000 people right now? You know what I mean? Like that.
We're playing for 200 people in a warehouse.
I am not going to approach playing a dive bar the same way I'm going to approach playing 50,000. Like, you know, it's going to change the way that I plan my set.
Yeah, I'm more talking about the dark, musty warehouse.
Oh, sure. I mean, whatever. I mean, I think everybody here can sit down and take any random collection of music and make something beautiful out of it. But I also have respect for, you know, folks who want to take the time to create something fucking cool. You know?
Nice. djTacehT, set planning.
Yes. Well, it did like you said, it really depends. For when I do DJ in the movie, actually it takes me 4 days. 4 days to plan, 4 days to mix the music to the actual movie to be like a silent film, to have it exact, because I don't have any other way to match
You're doing an audio
what's going
video
on.
presentation for your
Yes.
audience? Yeah.
Exactly, and it's all by whatever's in the whatever the movie's, what I'm going to give you musically
So you
through
plan,
the movie.
so there's a reason for you to plan,
Right. So that takes about 4 days to do that. But then when like my sets for Saturday or Sunday, I do plan. I try to get like a vibe, kind of get an idea of what I want to do, what kind of message I want to bring, or if I'm just feeling pissed off or whatever it might be. And really, that I will start that. I'll look for music. I'll find it. I'll grab a whole bunch of music, put it together. I have a great idea, like the first few tracks, and then I get on and it all goes to shit, to be honest with you, because I forget what I was trying to do and it just free balls from there. But sometimes free balls. But it's just
commando.
it loses its pants. That's why I always say no pants. But really, I do try to plan. If I really have a message, if I've like been feeling something for a week and I really want to kind of get that out, whether regardless if people get it or not, I will plan it out. I don't practice it because I want it to be raw when I do it. But if I am mixing, like if I'm gonna have a show like at a club or a rave, I will do maybe once around just to make sure the tracks are right, make sure that it does sound a little bit more professional. So that's how I do my set plan. The end.
Nice. Sweeby.
And with no pants.
No pants. No pants.
Did that need
No
to be said?
pants.
Really?
It has to.
For me, normally, no, you know, unlike Coherence and djTacehT and everybody else, you know, they have set Thursdays and Saturdays and Sundays. You know, they have the thing. Like Coherence has its Thursday. It's a deep session. And Saturday he goes out a bit more. Me, normally my only rule is to have 2 tracks at the beginning, 2 in the middle. Anything else after that, you know, whether it's a 2 hour, 3 hour set, it's a free for all. You know, I'm a very
Free balling.
very free balling. You guys know I'm a very diverse, open format kind of DJ. So no, I like I said, my most important 2 are the first 2. Like those 2 really gets me going, and then we just go from there. You know, now if it was in a professional environment in a club, then sure, I'm sure
I mean,
it would have to be a bit more. You know, I can't go crazy. I can't jump from electro to Venga Boys. You know, dubstep
You would
after
do
that.
it though.
Well,
do
for
it.
Twitch,
You've done it.
I do it.
An
I'm
attempt.
glad that
You
you
do it.
brought up.
Crazy.
But should one do it?
I'm glad you just
Oh.
brought
It
up.
doesn't matter.
I don't care. I'm just like,
I've
what?
used that name for years.
What?
Why? But no, that's the thing. See, it catches people by surprise, and they actually enjoy it. Now, again, like I said, if I was getting paid for it, yeah, you know, I would have to sit down a little bit more and at least not track by track, but at least structure it. You shut your mouth for me.
Just you
But-
structuring a set would be weird. I'm just saying.
I know. But no, like I said, I love to DJ as everybody else does, and I just go where the music goes, and the people in the chat. You know, that's my main thing. Touch it, you be quiet. All right, that's me. I'm done.
Nice. So mine usually starts. So like you were saying, I have kind of specific nights that are themed somewhat. Thursday more so than Saturday. So for a Thursday set, generally what I'll do is I'll go through my library. I'll find a particular track that you know speaks some kind of a like theme to me, and I go, okay, cool. Just pick out the elements of that theme that stand out, and then build a set around that. And when I'm building a set, I'm not going like, okay, first track will be this, second track will be this, third will be this. I'll usually, like you do, Sweeby, pick out an opener, maybe two that I think should be somewhere near the front. I'll usually pick one closer, and then just stuff thematically that I think fits, and put it all into a bucket and go with it. I'm not locked into that bucket, but that's my go-to bucket. And then, like you were saying, Annias, from there, it's really just using the circle of fifths and using my knowledge of those tracks and just gliding across them to create something. You know, usually starting a little bit low energy, bringing up the energy, and then tailing it off at the end with whatever the closer is. Saturday night's a little bit trickier, where I will do usually one or two kind of themes in my head. These are very loose themes. This will be like, I want it to be bangin' ass techno, or I want it to be, you know, expressive melodic techno, but with kind of a darker whatever. Put all those in a bucket again. Again, it's usually just one big bucket. I'll toss 80 to 100 tracks in there for a 60 track set, and then just go.
But you know what's clutch about that, right, though, is that bucket process.
The bucket, yeah.
Because, like, I think whether it's me or you or Dan or Tatch or Sweeb, like, all of us are capable of, like, that like, out of what we just talked about, I think regardless of how you end up doing it, the bucketing is kind of the important thing. Are you going to spend some time kind of developing some kind of, or are you going to literally just show up with 2,500 tracks on a fucking drive and like not know what you're going to do? Or, you know, all of us can like take some selection of tracks and make a relatively safe pathway to just be like, I can just fuck shit up with these tracks. I don't even know these tracks. I can just fuck them up because you know you did the work in the bucket.
It's worth mentioning too that for you know a majority of my sets, I would say 50% of the tracks are probably ones that I've played once ever, or that I'm playing for the first time.
When
and
you
I'll
bought
usually,
them or whatever,
yeah, they're just brand new, and I liked them when I heard them, and went, okay, we'll figure it out when we get there. And then usually about the other 50% is stuff that I've had, maybe I didn't play in a while. Thanks Serato for not having a play count indicator. We love you so much. But yeah, that's it. Oh, and of course, real quick, for live, yes, Dan, usually you make the set a little bit more expansive, so I'll do 2 buckets when I'm playing live if I know what the genre they're expecting is. I'll do bucket A, which is like a normal plan set, and then I'll do bucket B, which is audible stuff that I'm pretty sure people are going to ask for, and then of course I have my entire library there too. And so if you do run into a scenario where either whatever you brought, it turns out that the promoter for that particular event was full of shit and that's not what the audience wanted, then you need to move to an audible quickly. Or if people are digging it, but they're digging it so much that they come up to the booth and be like, hey man, can you play this track? Then like I've got that second bucket of all those tracks that I know people are going to ask for.
All right, it's getting on to be that time, about midnight Central Standard. I know it's really late for Deej. So I want to wrap this up here.
Deej is off tomorrow.
He's off tomorrow. Actually.
Yeah, but he's still past his bedtime.
Cheers, guys.
He can stay up.
Love you guys.
He can be a man and man up.
They told me that you would be asleep by the second half of the show.
Don't
You
listen.
started. You started. I heard that. That's why you're smoking.
And I finished.
The tales of
Fourth.
Sweeby falling asleep at his desk are greatly exaggerated.
Not
So
really.
Before we go, I just want to remind everyone, jump on the link from Slaughter and go click like on every single one of his deep dreams to help him get to the next.
What is this you speak of? What is he
So
doing?
Google Deep Dreamer, it uses AI and Google's images database. You load up an image and you set up a bunch of parameters, and then it transforms your image. It dreams it based on this neural network it has set up. It's really cool.
That's
It's a
cool.
lot of fun, and he's doing it right now. If you get a certain number of likes, as well as if you a certain amount of time, you basically start leveling up, and then you get access to deeper dreaming, where it uses more processing and can do more detailed things and higher resolution for images. And that's important because if you do a dream that looks really cool, you're going to wish you had it at a very high resolution because you might want to publish it or use it for something. So it becomes
Whoa.
kind of important.
That is
Flame,
pretty cool.
flaming
It's
bear.
really neat. It's at deepdreamgenerator.com.
Yep.
The link is in chat. So everyone go hit that up. And yeah, this is a koala, and then like it took a look at it and it looked at other koalas and other things based on the parameters that were set, and it started to modify it based on contextually what it's seen elsewhere. And it gets pretty amazing.
So are we supposed to just heart stuff?
Yeah, just hit heart
Yes.
endlessly. Just
Oh,
go
Heart.
hit.
Yeah,
Just
so
even if you hate it.
yeah,
do
for anybody that didn't follow, I'm sorry if this was touched on already. So this is using Google's Deep Dream artificial intelligence, where you feed it some information, and then it uses a combination of the information you fed it, along with its own internal, algorithms or thought processes to then transform images. And one of the things that you can do is take an image that's been transformed and then further transform it and further transform it, like basically pushing it and to use more of the AI's capacity to affect that image. And there's a little bit of a craft to it, and I think that Slaughter's really gotten the hang of it, which is fantastic, because he's chugging out some amazing pictures. But yeah, it's a fun tool. Yeah, if anybody needs a quick rehash for an album cover or for a quick little piece of art that's unique, drop in there, run it through Deep Dream really quick. I think you'd be surprised with the results.
He needs to get to 100 to 900. He has 125 likes right now. So let's just keep on hammering on that until we get him there. And then with that, I think the next streaming day is tomorrow for us. Goes up with deep sessions, and that leads into subculture post punk. So Thursdays are always really good. And then obviously Fridays with Dequil, and on to Saturday night's main event. Annias, when's the next time you're playing? Or Annias?
Probably just folks give me a follow and catch me on my stream. It'll be on stream or somewhere here in Austin. I don't currently have a gig right now.
All right, excellent. Catch it, Deej, Annias, thank you guys.
Thank
and
you.
gals, all
Thank you
for
so
coming.
much.
Well, I'll have all you back. It was fun. A lot of fun, I think, for everyone.
The rest of you guys are all veterans here. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you guys for inviting me into your clubhouse, and I hope that I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed talking about our art form and some of the this that we're all passionate about. And yeah, just thank you for having me in here with you guys for a while. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Hey, you
great.
bet.
Welcome.
So let's see, where are we going? Who are we
Somewhere.
getting the raid?
Woo!
Tremendum, are you on or no? Last week we dropped everyone at Tremendum.
Yeah, we just need to know who's on and where we want to go, and we will send you all there. It'll be
Moose, Kobe Lax are on. See,
Moose is on.
Moose is on. I think we're gonna have a studio tour from Moose eventually.
Fave, could you send us? That would be fantastic.
Rate us.
Let's see.
Push us into something.
To another universe.
Trendum's going live now. Yep, there we go.
Oh, Jermaine's going live. Cancel that.
Right now.
We'll raid Moose later. Totally happy to raid Moose, but
Sorry,
Moose wasn't
Moose.
in our stream tonight.
Love you,
Tremendum
Moose.
was.
There we go.
Those are some
Wow.
really green headphones, man.
Cool.
Thank
Everyone
myself.
enjoy the glitch that is about to hit, and I'll see you on the flippity flop.
The
Bye.
flippity flop. Night all.
Night, guys. There you go.
Ugh.